up of that picture, man. I need a close up of that, man.
Yeah, please record me being exposed as a massive racist. For those of you just tuning in, the joke I could have sworn I've been making for the last couple of streams has been, DJ has this really nice picture of Obama behind him. But from this distance, I couldn't tell if it was Obama or a picture of him. So I can't been under this impression that he's got a picture of Obama behind him. No, it's him, and I'm a racist. Apparently all black people look alike.
All black people look alike, exactly. All right, y'all.
Internalized self-hatred in myself. All right, it's a really good compliment. DJ looks very presidential. Take with that what you will.
Oh, I'm versatile. Don't get it twisted.
Obama was back there.
Don't get it twisted. I'm versatile, bro.
Fredericks, 2028.
In any type of environment.
Fredericks, 28, running for office.
All right, yo, Ghettos of the Mind. This is what, episode 29? We're almost there. The end of Black History Month. So I want to kind of get everybody together. We got a nice big crew here. Talk about a few things. First of all, talking about Black History Month. This is the end toward the end of the month. Shortest day unless it's a leap year. The end of Black History Month. So to get some closing thoughts. You know, I heard I was reading some that these rappers, a few of them, I don't know the names, but they were saying they wanted they started a term called, what was it called? Instead of Black History Month, called Black Future Month. I kind of like that. So kind of nice way of looking at that, sort of thinking of in terms of a good way to end up Black history. Anyhow, some things that I kind of noticed is going on Black History Month that I hadn't really talked about it. Anybody hear about what happened with there was an issue with the schools, people either bomb threats to schools or something that I heard something about. I don't know if you heard about that.
Yeah, a few
HBCUs.
Yeah, HBCUs. Yeah, I heard something about that. I heard a few times, but I haven't heard much about it. Just sort of came and went story. I heard much about
there were a few bomb threats down here at Howard, Bowie State.
Really?
It was Spelman. I'm not sure about Morehouse, but a lot of HBCUs. Like in the beginning of Black History Month.
Right, I'd heard about it. It just kind of disappeared, so it's interesting to hear about that. I didn't know if
they said they found they were able to find the people, but there was nothing ever came out identifying who the people were.
They were young. Mm-hmm. They were teenagers.
Yeah. It sounds like that. It sounds like some sort of idiot doing that. Other news: Joe Biden has nominated his candidate for Supreme Court. And I got I was what was her name again? I
put it in the chat. Abstract.
Ketanji Jackson.
What I forget her name was again. I don't see it.
She's the one from South Carolina.
No, she's from DC.
No,
yeah,
from DC.
She used to
clerk for the judge that's retired. And she's an appellate court judge now.
Ketanji Brown name is him.
Yeah. She's an appellate court judge now. I'm sure it's going to be some opposition, but at least I think 6 of the Republicans, voted for her confirmation to become an appellate judge. So
just last summer. So yeah.
So she'll make it. And she's related to who was the former speaker through marriage? What's his name?
Boehner? What was his name? Boehner?
No. Paul Ryan.
Oh yeah, Paul Ryan.
Her husband.
Her husband, yeah.
And Paul Ryan, the brothers, right? No, her husband, and she's related to them at some through marriage in some way.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Actually, the other thing that's interesting is that she is apparently the first public defender that was joining the Supreme Court, which is actually pretty interesting. So, I'm kind of curious to see what about her, learn more about her and kind of see what develops in. So it's kind of an interesting thing. So.
Hey, Streets, isn't this another instance of you have to know somebody to get an end? I'll be honest, I never really buy into that theory, but I have known some instances of it. And it's like, because you start noticing when it's like a lot of people who become president are related to other famous people, are political insiders. This person being related to Paul Ryan, the attorney general in Kentucky being related to Mitch McConnell. Like,
so you're saying that nepotism, cronyism is not is you're just realizing that's a thing in politics? Like it's not a thing in life? It's not a thing in all industries. You know what I mean? It's
good point.
It's who you know. I mean, what
Totally.
I mean, yeah. Granted, it's for someone to be a total outsider to become that much of an insider in Washington. I want to say it's virtually impossible, but they have to be a unicorn. You have to be someone that's either you're this superstar or
Exceptional.
you have to be super exceptional. In most cases, these are people who are usually pretty smart, but they have the right connections. They marry the right person. They're I mean it's people, it's like remember we talking about with Brian Flores. I know it's who you know. Like we talking about Brian Flores, we're talking about people hiring for jobs, and I don't know if it was you, Les, or because I don't know if it was you, DJ, but we're talking about how it's all like they hire who they know, and it's the same way in all businesses. They hire who they know, and I mean it's unfortunate, but it's true, and she probably in some way somebody.
A lot of times the process is just a formality. They already know who they want from the beginning.
Yeah, pretty much.
DJ, wasn't that the entire crux of that NFL lawsuit? Like exactly what the entire lawsuit was about?
Yeah.
I think but it is, but it's a little different though. Yeah. Now, if we're hiring for a job and I know I'm gonna hire, say I know we're hiring somebody and I know I have you in mind, abstract, right? But I go through the process, I interview other people, but in the end I hire you. Okay, hey, the people who interview maybe didn't get the job. I can say, hey, look, I interviewed you. You didn't get the job was the best person I chose this Aaron, even though all along I had him in mind. But if halfway through the process, someone finds out that hey, Aaron's a shooting for the job or he's got the job, then I'm kind of you're showing how the meat gets made. You're showing how you're exposing that process, and that's what I think is the issue that's tripping up. But that's with the story with Brian Flores in the NFL. He's basically I watched something on Real Sports about him last night. He's really sort of holding him to that promise, or at least that standard, because there's that whole thing of the Rooney Rule, and it's like if you're going to apply this rule, you should apply it properly. Even if you hire people, even if you have some mind to hire, you should at least go through the process step by step, and at least go through the whole steps of doing it. Even if you just
appearance of fairness.
Even if the appearance of fairness is fair.
Agreed. Agreed, Streets. And with the NFL's push on diversity and equity, it's not a real good look. Like for them trying to promote that, the last couple of seasons because of prior issues on race and Black coaches and leadership and ownerships of teams. It's not a good look.
What was I going to say?
Well, it's going to be interesting because now we have a Black majority owner now.
Yeah. Do they? I haven't been following. What happened with
the dude, what's his name? Brian, what's his name? He's the guy that owns the Weather Channel.
Oh, Byron Allen.
Byron Allen.
He
really?
He bought the Broncos. I know he was trying to buy the Broncos.
Yeah.
I thought somebody else was up for the Broncos too, though.
Wow, interesting.
I thought another brother.
Byron had
was
to
up
sue.
to buy.
Byron,
but not majority owner. I think he's the first majority owner.
Wow. I feel like Ologist is about to say it. Is this the same guy that had the Supreme Court lawsuit?
Yes, you got it.
Can you quickly summarize the story, real quick?
Well, he sued. I can't remember the details exactly, but he sued a TV conglomerate for like basically keeping the channels that he owned off of cable television, and he took it all the way to the Supreme Court. And I remember, and it's been a long time, about let's see, I'm gonna say about 5 to 8 years ago, I heard him on Sirius XM radio show talking about the lawsuit when he first did it. I mean, the process is long, but he's like, I'm hanging in there, and he didn't back down and he didn't settle. He's like, I'm gonna win, and he won.
Oh, Brian.
Oh, I
I was shocked.
didn't know he
Byron.
won that lawsuit.
I was
He's not-
shocked
he's
at
not
his
owner yet.
accomplishment.
Yeah.
He's not owner
Hearing his
yet. They
accomplishment?
took his bid, but he's not owner yet.
He's
Because
not
the
owner
other
yet.
owners got to vote him in.
Yep. And we're gonna see what happens.
Yeah.
Oh, they're gonna vote. I'm sure they're probably gonna vote him in. They don't want.
You get it. Yeah, network.
They want.
He's a network
want.
conglomerate. You'll get it.
They need to vote the owner of the Washington team out. They'll be voting him out soon anyway.
All the shit that happened with that guy, and he's still there. Really?
Well, they'll vote him out soon.
That guy's name is like Daniel Snyder or something, right?
I just read today that they're looking for new sites for the stadium, because it's in Maryland right now, and they're looking to put it in Virginia. One of the spots that I didn't even tell my wife this. One of the spots that they're looking to put the new stadium is like 10 minutes behind where I live. I can't deal with that. We can't have a stadium here.
Wow.
I hear you.
Yeah.
No, that happened with that happened with one of my relatives with the Braves stadium when they moved it out of Atlanta and put it in Marietta. They hate it. Like they basically the townspeople, traffic.
Oh,
but the city basically paid for it, and they really get nothing in return.
Yep, that's how it works.
So-called minimum wage jobs, this, that, and the other. It's
and maybe
like
tax
you do the cost benefit analysis, and then as soon as they get tired of that place, they'll just up and leave, and then the town has a big stadium,
huge stadium as it isn't useful. Yep, they were saying it's a lot of the same thing that they do. When they go to the Olympics, when they have the Olympic villages, that's what they do. Big thing in Rio, they talk about. Was it I think it was Abu Dhabi, it was one of them, but they were talking about how they're building all these huge facilities. It was for the last Olympics.
It wouldn't be good for us. We have to deal with traffic every day. I mean, even during the summers on the weekends, like if I need to go somewhere, I have to check the traffic. Like you have to check the traffic pretty much whenever you go anywhere. I use my GPS every day, like every day, just because of the traffic we have to deal with. If I didn't get in the HOV, which we have to pay for today, it would have took me almost 2 hours to get home in a 45-minute trip.
Wow.
I am not.
Yeah,
And it cost me. Luckily, it was lower, but like they rob you with the tolls too. Tolls can be high. One way can be high as $55.
One way?
One way for 20 miles.
Oh, Jesus, wow.
So, round trip, could be over 100.
That sounds like that old adage you were saying originally about when a while back tolls were proposed here in Connecticut, and luckily we just didn't do it. But what I kept hearing was tolls end up becoming more of an impact on the people that live in the area, more so than the people that pass through the area. Leon, would you agree with that?
Yep, it's true.
Oh yeah.
The toll company gave the state of Virginia $1 billion for them to. They gave them money up front so they can build a toll because they knew they were going to get more money later on.
Yeah, well, you can charge what you want to charge. Yeah, you're gonna make.
Yeah.
It's by traffic. No traffic, it's low. High traffic, it's high. Anyway, moving on. It's they can't put a stadium here.
Hope not. Also, with the NFL thing. So I don't know if we mentioned. I don't know if I mentioned earlier that they hired Loretta. The NFL hired Loretta Lynch to be their as a lawyer.
Defend
Apparently.
Yeah.
Defend him, yeah. And so, originally I thought, I was thinking, oh, they're trying to basically usurp things going on by hiring a black lawyer, maybe to kind of muddy the waters. And I was listening to this discussion about it and said that maybe they're doing that to have someone be a direct negotiator. You know what I mean? To kind of not necessarily be an adversary against Flores' lawsuit, but to negotiate, sort of actively negotiate with them to some degree. I don't know. We'll see.
He's a high-priced lobbyist, bro.
Who is?
That's what she is.
Oh, well,
that's what she is. She know everybody.
Right. So
Honestly,
that's what I'm saying. So it's
kind of
essentially,
assume.
but it's essentially a negotiation tactic.
Yeah.
As opposed to saying, look, I'm going to fight this all the way. I'm going to make sure, I'm going to take the opposite stance and fight it, and hopefully I'll win. They're taking a stance that, look, we hire someone that has connected, that maybe can negotiate.
Yeah.
Maybe we can kind of not leverage this, but they can kind of mitigate the damage, because it doesn't look good for the NFL. It doesn't look good for the NFL to have a 70% league and then they just have, a smattering of black coaches. That's ridiculous.
Absolutely.
It doesn't make
Absolutely.
sense. It's something that long term they can't just explain away and be like, oh well, it's just the way, that's the way it was, and it isn't gonna work
Are you
like
describing the makeup of the NFL or the makeup of the Supreme Court? Because I can take everything you just said and apply that. Everything you just said sound very similar to what Joe Biden was saying, that we need a more representative Supreme Court with his nominee. I did hear a little bit of that. I just didn't hear who he picked.
He picked. It was what was I just said her name?
I was trying to steer the
something?
conversation back towards
It's
the
in the
original.
chat. It's in the chat.
Yeah, and you know
I
why she's another reason why she's going to go through, because it's not going to change the balance. So it's not going to be too big of a fight.
Exactly.
Correct.
Exactly.
It's not.
Did y'all hear about this truckers crap in DC?
Oh, did they have they made it done yet? The convoy?
No, they're supposed to start this weekend. I'm definitely not going to work on Tuesday during the State of the Union.
Well, they're a little late, aren't they?
What'd you say?
All the mandates. I'm saying, aren't they a little late? All the mandates
and then I
are
read
gone
some
now.
shit that they're even upset about freaking critical race theory. That, like, one of them talked about critical. What the hell does a trucker have to do with critical race theory? They don't even know what the hell critical race theory is. But that was one of the things that all of this crap.
People,
they will clog
like
up
I
our
said,
arteries. They said they're not going to create gridlock, but they will. If they all converge on DC for the State of the Union, they will create gridlock.
It's called
Trump changed the federal guidelines on how we can handle protesters, or is it just in DC? Because I do know what's fucked up protesters in general since Trump, because he passed a bunch of laws or rules or whatever, specifically for Black Lives Matter protesters. And I do know some of those same laws and guidelines got used against the protesters on January 6th. I'm wondering, is it going to be the same scenario of, hey, thanks for dialing back some of everyone's rights. Enjoy going to jail.
Well, from what I understand, it's not going to, they'll let them protest. They'll let them protest, but they did call up the National Guard to direct traffic if need be, which is good.
And they put back up the fence, right?
Yes, they did.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they did.
Smart.
But we'll see. We've been listening to the news because I don't have to go in the office often, but I do have to go in Monday. So we'll see. Because that will definitely affect me and my wife. Definitely the difference. Yeah, it'll affect me, but it's still a bunch of crap while they're doing it.
Of course.
If they bring up CRT, that's another example, like I said, of some other group hijacking a movement.
DJ, the whole thing is a mess. After arguing with some of my friends, I figured out what's some other pieces of this stupid ass puzzle. Some of the most opinionated fucks were under the impression that everyone is reading from this fucking original critical race theory book, which is just a criticism of the implementation of the civil rights movement and segregation. They legit thought we were doing that. Though in practice, what these fuckers are actually saying they don't like is they've got the beef with the 1619 Project, Abraham X's book. I forgot the name of the other book. Basically, this idea of being anti-racism or just talking about it more broadly. There were a few instances of teachers sporadically throughout the school district saying, like, we're going to be anti-racist, you know, quoting all the topics from that Abraham X books or whatever. And then they started running with it and they turned it into this marketing campaign. The real issue I keep finding I wish it was just a conservative issue, just generally with most Americans, they don't care what it's originally about. It's really just code. I don't like it. You're saying things I don't understand and I don't want to understand, blah, blah, blah. And they just ran wild with it. Because if you don't, anytime there's something I don't understand, I want to give something the benefit of the doubt. I'll go back and check and I'll learn about it. And that usually calms me down. If you don't give a flying fuck what the other person has to say, if it offends you personally, or you take everything that happens politically very personally, you're not going to look into it. These people aren't looking into this.
There is
here we go.
You know what I'm realizing, like it's like I'm discovering something new, is that a lot of this, you know, you look at it, it's people just who benefits in all this. There are people on either side of the spectrum that benefit in having this sort of dysfunction that keep things going, that keeps things stirring up. They have like all this CRT stuff. People know the outside of people who are saying it, these truckers, they don't know what's going on. The people who keep bringing up these things, it's all just a big way of keeping dissension. You know what I mean? It's not really trying to debate an issue. It's just if I say things enough and I make a big enough stink, I keep things going. You know what I mean? And it seems to be the major track in how politics work today.
It's totally right. I mean, you are capitalizing on people's sincere ignorance.
Right, exactly.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Totally capitalizing on people's sincere ignorance.
Can't be wrong. Leon, you have to understand, my worldview is correct. Mine. Anything that doesn't make sense to me has to be wrong.
After it goes
Here's what
I'm saying. I'm not saying that. It goes further, it goes beyond that. What I'm saying is that there are people who the ones who propose this, that bring this, that come down from the mountain with these ideas that uses the way of creating a wedge. So whereas maybe, you know, we don't agree on issues, like I'm anti-gun, someone's pro-gun or pro-divorce, whatever, those are issues. But if I create an atmosphere where anything that disagrees with me is un-American, they're this and that, I'm sowing discord. I'm creating this sort of conflict, and I benefit off. A lot of people benefit. I really think people should look into who benefits off this. Who's the one that really benefits off this? You know,
Koch brothers. The Koch brothers.
Fox News benefits from that.
Koch brothers.
Fox News does, but Fox News uses this. They just use it. But what I'm saying is, who are the ones that are actually creating these narratives that they know aren't true, and they're using
Tucker Carlson.
No,
oh my God.
Tucker Carlson benefits, but what I'm saying is who's the one who's starting this? You know what I mean?
I feel you. I understand.
You think it's one person, Todd?
It's not. You're going the wrong direction.
I think there are various groups that
there doesn't need to be. Streets.
These concepts are money makers.
Right, exactly.
DJ, you're getting closer to my money makers.
Exactly.
The thing is, you don't need someone to basically be some person promoting these ideologies or this divisiveness. There's a market for this.
Mm-hmm.
People want to hear the lies. They want to hear the comfortable truth. We could get rid of Tucker Carlson. There'd be another person do the same shit. They'd follow this or that religious figure, this or that politician. This is a very important part about American culture. A while back, I was researching the Southern strategy, the whole divisiveness they use, the coded language they use. Truth be told, I realized what was at the core of that: the us versus them mentality. America, from its foundation, from its onset, was an us versus them setup. Mm-hmm. We're Americans, they're British. Fuck you. Then it became, we're Americans, they're Canadian and British, or whatever the fuck, the War of 1812. Fuck you. Then it became us versus Americans versus the blacks, Americans versus the whites. Our history is filled of these us versus them narratives. And it's all predicated on the fact that we don't want to understand. If we're friends, if we're all cool, we're all getting along, there's a certain desire of, I don't understand where Leon's coming from with this. Leon, please expatiate more. I would like to know more about what you believe in shit. That's where that whole us versus them thing gets broken up. People are comfortable in their ignorances.
Right. So Abstract, what I'm saying is that's through history. That generally has always happened. People always come from ignorance. But what I'm saying is that when you or I don't agree on an issue, whatever the issue is, someone comes to mind and says, the reason why Aaron doesn't agree, why the reason Abstract doesn't agree with you is because he's un-American.
This is
Because
an old strategy.
And people, there are those who, you ever see someone you ever see people about they're arguing, about getting a fight, and someone goes, "Man, you should let them talk to you like that, man. Well, you let them talk to you like that. You let them do that." People who instigate things, people who propagate, who stand behind the scenes and push the buttons and inflame this, because it's always been there. But there are those out there who are behind the scenes who are actually actively creating scenarios.
Streets.
Like
This goes back to 300 BC. There, I remember listening to this one podcast, and he was referencing this in one of the books that he had read. The concept is called divide and rule. You can divide and conquer, or you can divide and rule. Yep. So you pit two groups against one another. You get distrust. You come with the solutions or the alternatives, and then you can rule both sides. If one side is a minority, and then you suppress that other side. And it was attributed to Philip II of Macedonia in the 300s BC. So this is an old concept.
Yeah.
It's old, and they just taken it to a whole nother level with digital technology.
Like it's a Malcolm X call it a hustle. It's a gimmick. It's a concept. Somebody in higher ed comes up with a concept. Next thing you know, and I work for higher ed. Next thing you know, we go to these conventions. You invite these people at these conventions who give these presentations at these conventions. The school invite them and pay them to come and give a presentation on this new concept at the schools. Next thing you know, it's going out into the communities. Next thing you know, it's hitting media. And next thing you know, people are getting grants. People are getting donations, and they're starting businesses where they go around international and giving a presentation on their concept or hustle.
And
90%
of the time,
what you're saying,
90% of the time, DJ,
it's
not a new concept. It's a forgotten concept that people don't remember anymore. It's just repackaged and updated. It's nothing really new.
What we saying, Leon?
I was saying another example of what you were saying about if we do this or that, it's un-American, to like the whole thing with division, taking a knee. Like because we were taking it, nobody chose to understand why Colin Kaepernick or anybody else is taking a knee, but because it was perceived to be against the flag, which it wasn't, we're un-American, or they were un-American for doing it. You know what I mean? It wasn't against no flag. Come on now.
Yeah, but you're touching on the core part of what I keep trying to say. I don't think that's so much. Some part of it is on the provocateurs stoking these flames or pushing these narratives of ignorance onto other people. The other thing I find much more insidious is people's willingness to accept it. It would take 2 seconds to figure out what Colin Kaepernick was really doing this for. Doesn't matter, because it immediately became an issue all about them. My parents fought and died for that flag. It's not about you. I don't
think it ever was about that. I think they just didn't like because it was black people.
Right.
I think it's as simple as that.
It hurts their sensibilities.
I think it's as simple as that. I think if I don't like something already, it's easy to make me find a reason not like it more. So people when they saw Colin Kaepernick take a knee, they didn't like that. And any reason they could think of to kind of to make it even more, to even twist the knife and make it even more other or more un-American, they use it. So it's easy.
Yeah.
It is easy if I don't like something.
People
Well,
go
I mean,
very
you have to
When a
look at
certain
it.
person
justify their
stokes that
dislike
flame.
of something.
Yep.
I mean, you gotta look at it. The institutions that's in power, that's in control, anything that they feel is contrary or doesn't support them being in power or them having the rightful authority or God-given, however you want to frame it, authority, they're gonna label it as whatever negative, something that they don't want. And even if
First they laugh at you.
wait, no, hold on a second.
Tell me.
Even if people did research it, like even if they did just get on Google or whatever their search engine is, and they got different perspectives, they're still gonna fall back to whatever the perspective that supports that their group being
Their point of view.
empowered.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So
Worldview.
the other
Yeah.
information is out there, but they're gonna ignore it or discount it, and they're gonna minimize it, and then they're just gonna still continue to believe what they want to believe.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
Tell me
Agreed.
this. I think the biggest thing about the whole kneeling is the moment he chooses to do it. Could he have been still successful if before the after the Pledge of Allegiance, or I mean the national anthem, before they even do the kickoff, everybody get in line and kneel, and could that have sufficed?
DJ, the
Getting
answer
his
to that
point across.
question is no, because the minute they figured out the reason why he was kneeling and it's against their power structure, the results would have been the same. The response would have been the same.
It would have found a reason not like. It would have found a reason.
But you don't feel a lot of people is just upset, and we're not just talking about white people. We're talking about there are people of all race and colors with the fact that.
No, but I'm talking about the people that
I know what he
control the
means.
messaging that the masses see in this country, or the masses that watch the NFL, and how it's framed, and how initially when he did it, you had former Black players on sports networks being supportive. Within 3 days, all that flipped, because they were told from the higher up, basically, if you want to keep working here, your narrative need to change, and it changed.
Yeah, I
funny because then it flipped when
Go
Black Lives Matter in the last 2
Right, I was gonna say
years
that,
really
right.
started popping off.
right. It's funny to hear people who are
No,
totally
I'm-
against it now. You don't hear.
I
many
was
outlets
talking
saying
about
they're
the
against it.
commentators, their perspective flip. I don't think it flipped because of Black Lives Matter. I think it flipped because
Yeah, they flipped because of the dollar.
yes.
They paycheck.
Yep.
It wasn't in vogue in 2015. It's in vogue in 2019. Strike a pose.
I mean, look at it like this.
They flipped
The
the
halftime, the
same
Super Bowl
reason.
halftime. Eminem took a knee. More than half of the focus. Oh, Eminem took a knee. Not the actual halftime. Eminem took a knee. Did y'all see that? Like, what the hell, man?
So he took a knee. Giuliani and a couple of idiots.
Yeah, but he didn't even take a knee for
But it didn't have
based
to me.
on
That
Colin
didn't have.
Kaepernick.
Yeah, that
He
to
took
me
that
that
knee
didn't.
based on
Nobody
Tupac,
even
right?
thought about it.
No, he took a knee
Yeah,
to
that-
No,
Kaepernick.
Eminem
It was
has
because of
throughout.
Kaepernick.
I thought
It
he
didn't
took
even
that knee
dawn
for
on me.
Tupac.
Yes. Eminem throughout
No,
the
that's a-
last pretty much, or maybe since forever, has always been a Colin Kaepernick fan in all of his music, freestyles. It's been nothing but support.
Yeah,
I
he
think
has
the
been
only
supportive
other
of
thing
him.
he loves other than
I
that
didn't even-
is football.
I didn't even realize he was like taking a knee to emulate Kaepernick
He totally
until
was.
somebody said
Me too,
it. I thought he
Yeah, me
was
too.
you know,
Me
You
too.
should
wow.
probably listen to more rap
You know?
music then, because from Eminem, I was like, why would they pay him to do this? You know he's going to do this.
Yeah.
I didn't even
Yeah.
watch it, and I was like,
But-
no shit, of course he did it.
Yeah,
Have you
I
not been
could have
listening
swore
to
they
his
said he did it for
freestyles?
Tupac though. But okay.
He is a Tupac fan, but again, he's made multiple songs bashing Donald Trump and mentioning
Yeah.
how much he has support for Colin Kaepernick and how much he loves the NFL, or in general, just football. He's made tons of political statements, like I would say more so than it should about George Bush. Within the last 4 or 5 years, he's been constantly saying he's a Colin Kaepernick supporter. Remember, relative to him and his experience, Black culture saved his life. He is nothing but an ally, which is also why he spent most of his career promoting nothing but Black artists. I wasn't shocked at this at all.
That's the president of the Eminem fan club. Go ahead.
I mean, when I need to go start working out, it's
you just
good
don't lose
workout
yourself
music.
and get lost, huh?
Pretty much.
You want to lose yourself and you be like, dun, 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 dun. Oh man. So
I'm in the position to talk to these kids and they listen. I ain't no politician, but I kick it with them a minute. You see, they call me a menace. Is it true? If I wear it, if it don't, y'all swallow the truth, grin and bear it. Who's the king of these rude, ludicrous, lucrative lyrics? Who could inherit the title and put the youth in hysterics? Massive Eminem fan.
All right, man.
We see,
man. Any other thoughts on
he said
Black
semen.
History Month? Any other thoughts on Black History Month? We're kind of reaching the end of it. Oh, you know what? I saw a few more. I went and been getting my documentary thing on this month. I have a lot of them on on the streaming platforms. And I saw the one on the Gregory. I saw one. I told you about this biologist on Rick James.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I saw that. I watched
that was
it
pretty
again
good.
for the second time. It was good.
Yeah, it was. Yo, Rick was a wild dude.
Were you
surprised? Wild dude, yo. I would not all. Not really. I mean, but you know what though? I think he deserves a lot more credit than he gets. I kind of, I'm glad to see in the 2000s that when Dave Chappelle came out, they kind of, he kind of got a little bit of chance to get some fame and kind of people to recognize who he is. But
I didn't even know who he was until the Dave Chappelle show.
Right, but that dude's a talented dude, man. And you watch the documentary, the number of groups that they helped create, the Mary Jane Girls. Who else did he create? He wrote for obviously Tina Marie. He wrote for Temptations. He basically helped Motown in the 70s. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, he helped them make that transition from Detroit to LA. Because their sound was dying and he kind of revitalized it with a modern sound as a writer and as a producer of music. And people didn't really understand how musically brilliant he was because he did work with old white artists. You really need to watch the documentary. He played a lot of different styles of music and was proficient at all of them.
Yeah, he knew Neil Young and Joni Mitchell. I mean, that's right.
Yeah,
rock.
He was the black. He was the black Hugh Hefner. That's what
in more ways than you think.
Yes,
all I know about Rick James.
I don't know if Hugh Hefner did that much drugs.
Yeah. And Rick James and
when they was talking about the parties.
Kidnapping.
The parties.
Kidnapping.
They had a scene. They said one time he was when he was in his binge era, he went to the I think the president of what was it, Capitol Roadtown? Yeah, it was Atlantic. And he went to his office and he was like, "Oh, my album." He was in the guy's face going to get $1 million every time he creates an album. So he went to his office, he's create my, promote my album. He's mad because he wasn't getting the promotion he wanted. And the guy was like, "Yeah, of course you're gonna promote your album." The president of the label. He says, here's your check. He takes his check, jumps on top of his desk, zips down his pants, pulls his dick out, "Promote my album." Walks out the door.
So he was Kanye before Kanye.
He was Kanye way before Kanye.
But Rick had intelligence when he wasn't on that stuff.
Right. But this is Motown. So when he did that, he left office, the dude said, Lionel Richie. And the next year they promoted Lionel Richie. That's when Lionel Richie got so popular at the time. It was Motown. Motown at the time.
Man.
And also he took on MTV.
God,
Michael Jackson might owe some of his success to Rick James because of Rick James, his fight with them to play black videos on the thing, and then Michael Jackson was safer, and then because he took him to court and everything.
Just think the people that you wanted to hang with him. Eddie Murphy was at his peak. He was probably the biggest entertainer at the time.
Yep.
And Eddie Murphy wanted to hang out with Rick James.
Rick James, I'm telling you, I think it's proof positive that the light that burns brightest burns twice as short. You know what I mean? Because he was like, everything he touched turned to gold. Everything he did was like, and then after once he went to jail, he just he couldn't get it back together. He was just done. Anyhow, So that was my Black History Month.
Oh, I had a question for Mike since Mike is here. Mike, is your microphone on? That awesome mic you have?
It is now.
Hey, Mike.
Boys in the band.
Bang,
Tell us
bang.
which one is your all-time favorite.
What is the question?
Out of all of us here, who's your favorite?
I have my favorite. I have my favorite.
There you go.
There you go.
You know what? We'll
Tell him,
take it.
Kanye.
How's it going, Mike?
I'm pretty good. Sorry, I'm late. I've been
All
enamored with a video game. That's what I'm looking at right now.
Are you playing Elden Ring?
No, I'm not good enough for that. I'm playing Fire Emblem Three Houses.
My boys play that. They like it.
It's a fun game. It's real engrossing. I'm sorry I missed the first part of this. I was out. What did y'all talk about?
Black History Month. We talked about Biden's candidate for the Supreme Court. We talked about the trucker convoy.
Okay.
What else we talk about? Those are two major
Eminem.
things.
Football.
A little bit of football.
The trucker
Brian Flores,
Eminem.
Colin Kaepernick, stuff like that.
I was there for Colin.
And Aaron did his, he showed how devoted he is to Eminem.
Oh yeah, he's Eminem's publicist, hype man, all of that.
Yeah.
Because apparently I'm the only one actually following what he does.
100 years old, need a publicist that badly?
Yes.
Hey, get away you fit in, man. Need that money.
Um,
Any thoughts on Black History Month or Black Future Month, as some rappers like to call it now?
I mean, I got a lot of history. It's funny because I'm on TikTok now, and I've been running into a series of videos, just talking about different aspects of Black History Month. And what's always real funny is there's always going to be, every time someone posts anything about Black history, there will always be at least one comment saying, "Well, what about X History Month?" So they'll be like, "What about Asian History Month? What about, Hispanic History Month or Mexican or whatever?" And then there will always be someone that goes, "What about White History Month?" And the real sad thing is that the language that goes around with Black History Month is that for X to be focused on, it means we need to essentially erase another thing at another part of the month. And it's just very hard to get people to understand, White History Month is all the other months, at least where we teach it, the way where we are. But Black History Month is fine. I really didn't know a lot of what to say for Black History Month. It's been a real at least to me, it's been a real tough couple of years. I mean, even the Black experience in America is tough anyway. But it's been a tough couple of years, especially given the aftermath of the Obama administration socially, because white people lost their minds and made it our problem, because it's always our problem to endure. And, it's fine. I've just been trying to focus on good stuff. I've been trying to buy Black publications. I bought a comic book magazine about Black superheroes.
Bought a pair of Reeboks.
I got the Milestone Compendium.
Nice.
I went out and shelled the $60 for that. I bought this book about a Black fiction, written by a Black fiction writer, but my friend said it was very good, but I have it, so whatever. I'll get to it when I get to it.
I just got a speaking of Black fiction, a Walter Mosley book for Christmas. So
what book is it?
Oh damn, I can't even think of it now.
He's got so many, man.
I haven't read it yet, but that's cool. You know what? With all this book banning, Mike, they're talking about there should be more of an emergence of Black bookstores, since they're trying to ban Black books.
The book banning,
way to capitalize.
You know what?
What's interesting about the book banning is that what you're ultimately end up seeing, right? Because they keep saying, well, we're doing this to protect children, right? But look at the books that are getting banned, and then look for the reasons why they're getting banned, right? The Hate You Give, which I've never read, like any of the books written by people of color about their experiences, because even the possibility of having to experience that is uncomfortable to white people, they ultimately end up being banned, and they'll say, well, I don't want my little child to have to, deal with like something like racism. And it's just like Black kids, Hispanic kids, Asian kids don't get the choice of not having to deal with being uncomfortable racially. We don't get that choice.
Well, you know what? We need to start utilizing that law for our agenda. We know it wasn't written for our agenda, but the law is written to be colorblind. And when our children start saying that certain books that are being read in class or that are part of the curriculum that they feel uncomfortable and that the teacher needs to stop teaching, then maybe people will take a step back and say, oh, I thought it was just written to stop critical race theory and Black Lives Matter. But no, the concept is bigger. It's just that if a kid feels uncomfortable or somebody feels uncomfortable, so if they start teaching about slavery and Southern state rights, this, that, and the other, and my child says that they feel uncomfortable because Black people were slaves, then they need to stop teaching. We need to mirror what they do instead of just sitting back and letting them sort of dictate, always be on offense and us playing defense. Because if you play defense the whole game, you always lose.
Right.
And that's what Thurgood, to take it back to our earlier conversation, when Thurgood Marshall worked for the NAACP and was taking cases to the Supreme Court, that's what he did.
The Virginia governor tried to implement some of that shit, but it got voted down.
Right.
So that's good.
And the thing is, a lot of that is it's very interesting, right? Because at this point, because this is just going to bleed into politics, because it ultimately is, the Republicans don't have anything to offer their base, right? I mean, they just don't, because what they're going to do is pack the court with judges that are going to change, or adjusted my camera, I'm sorry, that are going to change the law, that are more in favor of business, and going to dismantle their rights, and are going to cut taxes for wealthy people. And all they have to offer their voters are racial animus, fear and anger.
That's versus them.
I'm sorry?
Us versus them. It was a topic we were talking about earlier today.
It is that. That's all they're going to do. They're just going to inflame their base in some way and say it's the Democrats that are doing it, right? When they sit there and they keep trying to, ban something like critical race theory, ultimately what's only going to end up happening is this weird like regression back to where only white people get to talk about stuff, because they're not really interested in fixing anything. The let's not talk about race argument isn't about talking about race. It's about silencing people of color so that they can't talk about it. I don't want to be like, I would love it if you brown people would just suffer your problems in silence. like that's really what it is.
Didn't they already vote in Tennessee? Didn't they already vote that they didn't have to participate in Black History Month?
Yeah,
there was a.
It did really.
There was. I think I shared it, but like there was essentially a sign. Well, I think it was Indiana. Well, it was one of those states, basically where the school, in order to get ahead of this, sent basically a permission slip home, and it basically said if you want to opt your child out of participating in Black History Month, subject matter, here you go.
How about that?
Was that
this is
old
let me follow up.
Last year? Or like
so guess what?
The
Black kids in that district, their parents should write a letter. I need a letter to opt me out of St. Patrick's Day. I need a letter to opt me out all of these other holidays. Like, no, I'm being.
Can I say something?
Being facetious.
That's how you.
Wait. Go ahead, Dave. We got to say that.
Yeah, may I ask you guys a question? Because we're just pontificating, man.
Yeah, we are.
What's the when I think about this, how do we enact change, right? Because you can say this. You can say, all right, I'm gonna send a letter and tell them what I don't want to hear. But when the majority's in power, they will listen to you and not hear what you want to hear, and will just silently disappear. So the question really is, how do you enact change down the road to where? Because what's happening is at the local level, I think where we've missed the boat as a people and as a party, that's we've kind of voted for national people that, whether it's presidents and congressmen, and then we've not voted at the local level enough. So when when school boards and superintendents and local legislators are making these laws and passing these rules, we don't have a voice there, right? And I get some of these states are just harder to crack, but part of the challenge is we got to start voting at the local level and start putting people in, right, who are representing our causes. Because if not, if we just say we're going to be silent and and we're going to send them a letter and tell them that we don't want to hear about Thomas Jefferson, we don't want to hear about slavery, or then they'll just go, okay, and eventually we'll disappear. So we got to figure out how to change this.
I think the first thing we end up doing is we go about the work and educating ourselves and our children, right? Black History Month did not exist in my hometown until my parents made it happen. And I don't know how much they do it now, but like for a couple of years, my family and actually at the time my neighbor, who was also Black, were the Black History Month events. So it starts with making sure that those of you that do have children, I do not and probably never will.
Could adopt me, Mike.
No. We start with making sure that our children are educated. That doesn't mean there are ways to make it fun. I mean, even if it's like sending them TikTok videos. Hey, did you know that game consoles, like this Switch right here, you don't get to this Switch without a game console invented by a Black man? Did you know that? They'll talk about the Super Soaker. They'll talk about gas masks, but like game consoles, like we invented that. Like America, we invented everything important in America. For as much as they want to talk about it. Now, white people will have taken that and have made it, successful, but like you don't get, it's us. We're the ones doing all this stuff. And we need to educate our kids in that. And even if they don't talk about it, at least they know. And then then we go to the school boards. And then we say, my child's needs are not being served. And you make it a problem. Like you go there, you get up in the principal's face. Like, 'cause again, when I transferred into high school, there was apparently a meeting before I even moved from middle school to high school where my father and my mother both went and talked to the principal of my school. And because there are so few Black people, like it's not like there's so few Black people in town, like it's a big deal. This is our child. He's coming through. We have a daughter who will be coming through 3 years after. You will see a lot of us. And we will not be placated and pushed off to the side. Like, you need to be there. Be up in your teachers' asses. I mean, not the teachers.
Yeah, Mike's right on that one.
Let me
whatever happened to compromise, though? Whatever happened to compromise?
No.
Everything is
They don't compromise. They don't compromise.
I want to,
Mike.
I want to respond as far as
I'm saying everybody, Mike. I'm just saying everybody. We're all fighting for our views. We want this, we want that. We don't compromise no more. Politicians, our Congress don't compromise no more. We used to have referendums where if there was the people when you vote during an election, you had these referendums and you see if the people want this particular law to pass, and the people will vote, yes, I do want marijuana. And they're like, we don't care what the hell you think.
We gotta remember how I said earlier today.
We can meet both ways and everybody can get this thing.
But how can we compromise if we ain't never get shit in the first place?
We're talking about compromising with people who do not want to understand the issues that affect us. They do not care about the particulars of critical race theory. They're perfectly fine saying, I don't want these Black things being taught in my school in a discussion at all.
I want to kind of give a framework.
I like compromising.
Go ahead.
How?
No, I want to give some framework for solutions. Like, David, the reason why I said that we should start writing letters. I had this conversation with an Asian librarian earlier this week. saying that we want this book banned. It's not for the fact of banning books. It's for the fact to open the eyes to the people who are trying to ban our books or any other group, that the library should be an open space for all ideas. And until their stuff starts getting banned, they're not going to care as long as it's folks of color books getting banned. To open their eyes, a library is supposed to be a place for knowledge where you learn about everything, even points that you don't agree with, and all those books should be there whether you like them or not. That's the point of doing writing letters to ban other folks books. But as long as people don't have the ideal or the concept that a library is a place for all ideas to encompass for anybody who wants to walk in and read them, no matter what they look like, what they identify with, or whoever they are. But those books, those concepts are there for them. And really, as far as damaging kids, that's really up to the parents. Like, look, the kid brings home a book. No, sorry, you can't read that.
Right. Exactly.
That's not up to somebody outside of my house to tell my kid that he shouldn't have access or she shouldn't have access to that book in a public library, which we all pay taxes for. And that's that point. As far as we do need to, I agree with David completely as far as participating in local elections. We still got to remember, we talk about redistricting and all of that stuff. In some situations where you don't have the numbers, it's tough. I mean, you still need to go out and participate in the process.
Elections have its consequences,
but it is what it is when you're not the majority.
Yeah.
There's ways to do it. I was going to say to Ologist's point about, say, banning books. There is, I don't need to go into the whole story, but one of the good ways to win an argument like this is to point out the fact that in every public school I ever went to, because I was a very religious kid, there was a Bible in our schools. I can point to very controversial verses, books, aspects of the Bible that are, let's just say, not PG. I'm not the first person to come up with this idea. When they start banning books, throw this onto the pyre as well. I can easily say there are aspects of this that are offensive.
That's
it's
not
the
PG.
same argument.
No, the upsetting thing is people don't realize this is a step away. This is not too far away from if the old documentaries of Nazi Germany where they take all the books out, throw them on a pile and burn them. Yeah. We getting there. We're getting there, and nobody realizes that. Nobody's speaking to that. It's crazy.
Ed, Mike.
There was a minister recently that did that.
Yeah, it was.
Burning books.
Shared that story.
I'm not gonna track through it, but
Locke. His name was Locke.
Yeah. David, I don't fully know how to answer your question, right? Because it unfortunately is an individual and activist level. We certainly need to organize within our communities ourselves. So the first thing you need to do is to find the other Black parents in your town. And I do mean, and in this instance, I know there is a cultural difference between African Americans and people from the Caribbean and people from Africa. But in this instance, I think we all need to unify together under our, unfortunately, in America, collective Blackness, and become that force again. If we are like Ala just said, we're all paying taxes. We deserve to have our voices heard, and we deserve to have our children served as everybody else. And it needs to be an organizing. It needs to be an organized pushback, and you keep it local, right? It'll ultimately expand out, but you keep it local, and then if you know someone in another town, you say you got to start the next round. Y'all got to do the same thing.
Yeah, I appreciate that. You hit it right on the head, man, because our dollar has power, right? And we got to remember that. Sometimes you got to get at them from different angles. You got to start small, start local. Our dollars are influential in the community. Start there, right? Start, refusing to spend in places. If you want white America to listen, hit their pocketbooks first sometimes, right? and
all
get
the
at them
time.
from the table, right? That's always where you're going to get a response.
It's been true.
Mm-hmm.
There was something else to David's point. A lot of times what we're actually reacting to nationally are extremely local issues. There's a bunch of stuff that happened in regards to books being banned, the critical race theory stuff, even some of the trans legislation that just kind of popped up in the news. That is all indicative of the local areas and the populace is there.
Well, no, that's definitely a national issue, right? You know, Greg Abbott doesn't essentially make open season on Greg Abbott, essentially making it open season on trans children and their families may start in Texas, but if you haven't noticed, once one of the states does it, the other Republicans in other states will follow suit because, quite frankly, they all want to do it. They all want to create some boogeyman.
I know a few exceptions to that, but I know what you mean.
Greg Abbott just signed an executive order that if a parent, Greg Abbott just signed an executive order if a parent has any sort of medical procedure for their trans kid, I guess.
No. It's not if it happens any medical procedure. It's if a child is found to identify as transgender. It is the requirement of the school and Child Protection Services to investigate the family for child abuse.
That's crazy.
Now
Texas is not a state I want to live in.
In Florida, they just passed a bill where you cannot talk about LGBTQ plus issues in a way that is not age appropriate. There was briefly an addendum, an amendment to the bill that said teachers and administrators have to report to the parents if they discover that the child is a member of the LGBTQ community, Q plus community, in order to allow the parent to properly manage the mental health of the child.
That's a fucking disaster. Are you serious?
Disaster.
Oh,
right?
that's not going to stand up in court.
No. I said briefly. It was taken away, right? But what it essentially says now, teachers can't even basically say, "Hey, I know you can't tell anyone, but I know you're gay." Or if a child says comes up to a teacher and says "Hey,
I agree with that though. A teacher should not be coming up and telling a child.
Children don't do. Teachers don't do that.
It doesn't.
No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. It really doesn't. You don't. No, it doesn't. It doesn't.
It would behoove you to listen, my friend.
There was a case.
No,
don't tell me there was a case where a teacher, and they set up a group, LGBTQ group, and this teacher went to this child and told that child that person had gay characteristics. I'm trying to put it in.
No, I understand what you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
But the teacher went and told this child. And this child did not feel, she put this in this child's head, and the child went back and told the mom. And the mom came back into school and went off. That has happened.
As much as I disagree with that. As a gay man, I'm just gonna tell you, I don't believe you.
Okay, you have not believed me about other things, but
I know, but this one I'm real personal about, right? So all right, and that's not what I'm talking about. Like this instance that you brought up, I will be generous and say this is a boogeyman some right winger made up to instill the reaction that you are given, which is fear. They don't.
You're saying it may not be true. The chances are it's not true.
Or we could just find out if it's true.
I mean, but
you know what? Wait. I don't know if
we can find out if it's true because schools have those types of groups, and they advertised for them. Maybe the teacher was passing out stuff to everybody. We don't know the context of the whatchamacallit. Maybe the kid went home and said that to their parent. We don't know. Or maybe it played out like DJ said. Who knows?
Exactly.
We don't know.
Let me ask you this question though.
I don't think it's a good test case.
Well, we're picking one example. DJ, I ask you this, man. How many elementary schools are in the town you're in? Or just
in Hartford,
just K through 12 schools.
There's got to be. I would say there's got to be like.
I think there's 37.
15,
no, K through 12 all the way through. I think there are like 37 school districts in Hartford. 37 schools, right? So one incident of a teacher acting out of touch, right, is not the example of the census, right? To say, well, we got to stop because one teacher. I mean, we re-educate that teacher on the right approach, but we don't stop the progress because one teacher moved in the wrong direction.
Exactly.
Yeah,
how many of our teachers? But how many of our teachers told us that we couldn't perform academically, this, that, and the other, because they looked at our gender and the color of our skin growing up? Like
my AP English teacher.
Understand where all I said, and I agree with everything Mike was saying, but I do not. And all I said, there's a case where a teacher went and told this child that I believe you're gay, and I'm telling you, I do not agree with a teacher taking that stance, Mike.
Well,
everything else I agree with you. And I'm the only one that feels that way.
Well, then I will. You're the only one that feels that way because. You are.
Well, am I? Nobody else saying anything.
All right, DJ. I'll step in. That to be honest, if a teacher did that he or she is stepping outside their boundaries. It's unprofessional.
Thank you.
So of course I agree with that, but it's that case. But you're using one case to extrapolate towards every or trying to insinuate to every case. If that is,
I didn't say that. No, I did. I brought it. I'm just mentioning just like everything that comes in the paper. You don't hear every case. It may be more. I'm just saying that I'm aware of this because it did reach national news, and that's the only reason I brought that up. And I'm just saying. And when Mike and I agree with everything Mike was saying, I just said I disagree with if a teacher is saying that, approaching a child and telling them that, you're really gay. That I disagree.
Wait, DJ.
Everybody stop for just a second. DJ, I'll say this. I bet the way this conversation went down, it's not that, hey, I think you're gay, right? Like, no teacher would do that.
Mike, you can't say that.
Stop.
You can't say no teacher would do that.
Let him finish.
Go ahead, Mike.
What I do think is it probably went, hey, there's this group for LGBTQ plus kids starting, and I think you might be a good candidate to join. That's probably how that conversation went down, right?
And guess what?
And then the kid told his parents, and the parents were like, "What?
Possibly."
No. And sometimes allies go to those meetings just to be supportive, so that they can know what the issues are and understand them better. It's straight kids in those groups also.
Now there are. Before when I was in high school, like even
there are now. There are now.
I said yes. I said that's what I mean. Like now there are. Like when I was in high school, like I'll be honest, because it was like the 90s, I avoided that shit like the plague. It's like, no, I knew a couple of them kids because I hung out with the same circles. I'm like, oh no, I ain't over there. No.
You're a big sellout. I ain't down with them. Just talking about.
It's really hard for me to believe a teacher would do that. Though.
Yeah, that's not very suspect.
Yeah. Well, again, what I think happened is a teacher made a suggestion in an attempt to help the child, and as the story got out, as with everything, the narrative morphed, and I'm beginning to believe that DJ heard the 12 times translated version, where the real story was a lot less innocuous. Was a lot more.
We should talk about. I want to talk about Greg Abbott's executive order because I don't know. I think we should go a little bit in depth. On that, because that's kind of crazy that you're going to consider if a kid if a kid sees themselves as gay or bisexual, whatever, that's considered child abuse, and you can have the family investigated. An investigation can lead to them removing all the kids in the homes, not just the kid that they think, you can really screw up somebody's life and a family's life through this crazy law. And all it takes is one Texas Department of Protective Services workers, because that's what they call their version of CPS down there, that agrees with that thing and removes the kid based on this executive order, all the kids.
Right.
And puts them in foster care. That's crazy.
And
it's this grandstander for national spotlight. If somebody is thinking about running for some office or some shit. And again, somebody brought it up before about it being on their platform or something like, you know what I mean? It's all, to me, all it is, and especially dude in Florida is doing it. DeSantis, everything he does, he wants it to be on a national level.
Oh yeah.
Just in case he runs against Trump.
My biggest issue with a lot of this is, I'll be honest, I've mentioned it before, growing up, religious family, I was kind of a homophobe, and the only thing that really got me out of it was hearing one of my friends come out of the closet and the extreme grief and inner turmoil his family, that was also religious, put him through.
It sucks. It sucks worrying about getting kicked out of your family. Getting kicked out of your family. So you just don't. It sucks.
And it's like the main point I have with anyone who may not understand, because I don't understand this. Like, I was just reading up on some of this stuff earlier today. Please keep this in mind, that the suicide rates for these kids is really high.
Yes, it is.
And it's really fucked up that, like, just because, say, there's a group of people that don't understand the particulars of how this works, be it a gender spectrum or someone in the middle of transitioning or all the stuff that goes into it, they'll impose laws on these people without understanding it. And being a kid already is pretty damn tough. Your hormones are going crazy. There's a lot that goes into your childhood. And you're dealing with a lot of identity issues. It is a very, very, very vulnerable population of very young people. And I would think when we're talking about the survivability of children, it would warrant anyone or everyone to want to figure out, well, I don't understand this trans stuff. Maybe I should look into it.
Aaron, there was a Texas state representative candidate that was on stage, and she was talking about, she was a former teacher, and she said she was uncomfortable by transgender children, and how she was also uncomfortable that she couldn't allow the other children to bully that child. She fucked up and said the truth with what she meant.
Said that?
That's a problem.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
What was she? What was she? Was she a teacher?
She shouldn't be working.
Former teacher.
Yeah, I guess so by now.
There
I'll
are
send
a lot
y'all
of
the TikTok.
who are not interested in learning about the LGBT, these people. They're different and they're bad. That's their mindset. They're different and they're bad, and therefore it is all right to do all these things to them because they're different from me. And Aaron, I see your face. It is unfair and not right, but this is how a lot of people think. And
I mean, think about it. Even in our community, I mean, from when we were younger, it's not that like now we're old enough not to believe that. But when you're younger and you don't know, like, I mean, we all know kids are born; they're not born racist. Their parents teach them how to be racist. So, if you grow up in an environment thinking some way, you're gonna grow up believing that until you want to see the light, or until you see the light. Some people don't want to see the light.
I got a really fucked up point to that. I was arguing with one of my friends who, despite numerous attempts for me to explain this idea that there's a gender spectrum, like it's not as binary as we originally thought of it. I think some of the issue is this. Remember how a while back, sorry for going left field on this. People were still talking about how Pluto is no longer considered a planet. This kept getting brought up because it affects their understanding of how the world and reality works. Pluto is no longer considered a planet because when you start comparing a planet like Pluto based on its size to a planet like Jupiter or Venus or even Earth, you realize the description doesn't mean much of anything. There's such a wide variety of different planet sizes. Considering Pluto in the same category as other planets doesn't make any sense. But the reaction to that is it affects how people understand something about how reality works, how their understanding works. I believe in some aspect, the issue with trans rights, trans issues affects how they perceive a fundamental concept relative to themselves. And they're just not fucking considering that you're not having this crisis. You're not having this issue at all. You not understanding this is not as important as this person trying to just live their life. Again, my mind does not work that way. I struggle to not want, I had to know more because I can't stand this idea of people killing themselves.
Well,
Like,
wait, Aaron, can I say something? The example that you use is kind of ironic. The example that you use, the Pluto, because if you ask the astrophysicist, they'll say Pluto is not a planet because it hasn't cleared its orbit, it doesn't have enough gravity to whatever suck everything in and clear its orbit. If you ask a geologist, yes, Pluto is a planet because geologically speaking, it does all the things that geologists consider to be a planet. It's a planet. The media portrays it one way. So the point I'm trying to make is people will go back to the science or the belief that they believe in to prove what they believe in. So Pluto's a planet to astrophysicists. I mean, not a planet, but it's a planet to geologists based on the criteria that they have. So if you're religious and you believe a certain thing, that something is wrong, then that's what it's going to be. No matter what the astrophysicists say, blah, blah, blah. It is what it is.
So
let's talk about something else.
Who wants to talk about Ukraine?
DJ
Ukraine.
does.
At whole
Go ahead, DJ. Start us off.
You want to start, DJ? You want to give us a Cliff version of what's going on?
Well, as far as what's going on, basically, when the old Soviet Union broke up, it broke up into different countries like Crimea. What is it, Crimea?
Crimea, yeah.
Crimea.
Moldova, Georgia, Chechnya,
Georgia. Was Poland even one of?
No, Poland has always been a country.
It's too
under
middle.
They were in the Warsaw Pact. They were a buffer zone, Russia's buffer zone. Right. Controlled, independent but controlled countries during the.
Yeah. So Putin, in his old age, some people say that he is experiencing some type of illness, and as a point of his legacy, he wants to bring those. He want to annex those countries that used to be a part of the Union of the Soviet Union. Prior 1994, I believe.
Prior to the break of the Soviet Union,
yeah, and he wants to bring them back into the Soviet Union, and this is not good. This bothers me a lot. It bothers me a lot. I see the worst in people, and I see the best in people. We think about all the things, all the divisiveness that, cultural, political divisiveness we have going on in this country. And to see what this country is going through, to see those 13 guards or soldiers on Snake Island confront a battleship that's capable of destroying a whole city or cities. And all they have is probably a pistol and a rifle, and to tell that warship, go fuck yourself.
Yep.
Before that warship unload on them. That right there, that made my heart swell, man. That's patriotism. That's a whole country coming together and forgetting all their inner conflicts and everything under one cause, man. They went against this battleship and said, go fuck yourself. And all they had was, and they knew they was gonna die.
I was watching some video of some woman who was confronting like a Russian officer. She's asking,
right,
here, and it was in his face. And a lot of the what's going on with Putin in Russia, at least from what I've been reading, has also a lot to do with Ukraine joining NATO. Ukraine wants to join, be part of NATO, and Russia doesn't want that. It's essentially, from where I look at it, if you look at a map, it's more like a land grab. I think Russia wants to grab that piece of land that part of it is sympathized with, because part of the eastern part of Ukraine is sympathetic towards Russia, and the western part is more sympathetic with Europe. They want that whole land of it. They want it's I don't know how many people are in Ukraine, 44 million people, something like that. You know, they want all that land, and they want to consolidate power. And they don't want NATO being in their backyard. You know, that's part of it.
I disagree. I disagree with that theory, but because let's say they do take over all these other countries, Ukraine and everything, NATO gonna still be at their border, Poland, and they're gonna be at the border. So I disagree with that theory.
Okay, but also, but Ukraine also has the second largest army of all of Russia. When Russia split up, Ukraine became its own country. They have a pretty significant army.
I don't think it's about army. I don't think it's about an army issue.
But it's land and it's NATO. I think that's what I think.
It's about Putin. It's about Putin wanting to reunite the Soviet Union, right? And he wants to start with Ukraine. One, because Ukraine is one of the biggest countries that's separated, right? One, they also have access to the Black Sea, which he kind of wants to lock off. They also have gas, and I know Russia has a lot of gas, but they also provide a lot of wheat to the West. They provide natural gas to Europe as well as Putin. So this is kind of
and IT. And IT.
Yeah. You know, so he wants to start reuniting. This is the reason America is pushing back on Putin on this, is because I don't think Putin wants to stop with Ukraine.
Nope, he certainly doesn't.
I think he eventually wants to go and grab Estonia, which is to the north, right? Latvia, which is also these other former Soviet. He's going to slowly try to
reconsolidate the old Soviet Union.
If you don't slap him, at some point he will eventually take these countries back over.
Yep.
So that's a big problem for us. The question is,
already invaded Georgia when Trump was in office.
Yeah,
no,
actually, it wasn't when Trump was in office.
When W was in office.
Not when Trump was in office. Took Crimea during in 2014.
2014.
And they took Georgia. They took Georgia. When did they take? When was Georgia? When was Georgia?
Under
was
the Bush administration.
Or was that
under the Bush administration?
No, there was some.
So all right. So why do you think that matters to us? Why should it matter to us? Anyone?
Because we don't want this fucker to start harassing our allies. I don't want Russia to keep expanding its sphere of influence. Fuck them.
I guess what I'm saying. In what ways? In what way? Go ahead.
I mean, obviously the gas is going to go up because of the control of the oil and gas.
Go ahead, Sean.
Go ahead, Sean. Let Sean go.
DJ and I talked about this the other day. You know who's watching? It's China.
Yeah.
And Dave agreed with it. China's looking at Taiwan like dessert. if Putin can do this to not Croatia,
NATO,
Ukraine,
and US.
You know what? We're gonna
and we got to remember, we got to understand that. Think about what Taiwan represents. I brought this up, right? Taiwan represents semiconductors, right? For China. So that the largest producer of semiconductor in the world is China, is Taiwan, right? And what do we need in all of our everything? Semiconductors and electronics. What do we need in our nuclear weapons? What do we need in our military weapons? Semiconductors. So if China grabs that, right, they control. So to Sean's point, it's funny, I was talking about that today too. Yeah, China is watching quietly and just kind of saying, okay, let's see how this plays out. Taiwan, We're coming next. So America, this is geopolitical warfare.
Yep.
America and NATO are saying we can't just stand back and watch this. But the problem is, for the first time since World War II, you've got nuclear countries. Not I should say, since the 62, you know, when Kennedy went against Khrushchev and Khrushchev backed down. Where there's
the Cuban crisis and
the Cuban Missile
the
Crisis,
Cold War.
Where now you really have two nuclear powers that are really flexing muscles a little bit. This is tough. It's not simple as
what would happen? What would happen if China decide to go after Taiwan right now in the midst of what we're dealing with Ukraine? What would NATO,
we couldn't
EU,
do anything.
What would they do?
We couldn't do anything.
But here's why China
get it.
China's a little different though, because China is tied symbiotically with the West. There's no China without the West, right? China has to sell their products somewhere, and then they have to take the money they have and put it. Then they have to take the money that they make from those products and put it back into our banking system, because who's going to borrow their money? So China is less likely. It's more likely to listen to the West a little bit, but not necessarily jump as quickly. Russia is what makes me nervous. Putin is becoming more and more isolated. And what happens when you back someone in a corner, right? They're going to bite. And this dude has nuclear weapons. Let's not forget how crazy Adolf Hitler was. At first, we ignored him and said, I know, whatever. But, you know, when you give one guy this much power, and Putin, you know, ever since, after Gorbachev, Boris Yeltsin, right, who kind of tried to bring Europe, try to make Soviet Union look more like a democratic society. And ever since Putin, who is an ex-capitalist dude, got into office, he has been slowly consolidating power.
Grabbing power,
Everyone around
power
him
grab,
tries to challenge him. So, and what are you going to do? Let's face it, we can put sanctions on him, but sanctions not do anything to this.
Sanctions don't hurt Putin.
No.
Sanctions don't hurt Putin. Putin, he's not only the biggest gangster in the world, but he might possibly be the richest guy in the world, because you can't track his money.
I know that I was listening to, so they can't track his money. I'm like, oh my,
he might possibly be the richest man in the world.
I'm like, wow, that's just astounding.
He can sell a nuclear. He can sell a nuclear bomb.
There's also,
right
let's
there.
not forget, during some of our conflicts in the Middle East, he was supplying our enemies with weapons. There's that too.
Yeah, but
the last thing I even heard in the news,
we do the same too. We do the same. We
did it during that when Russia was in Afghanistan.
Yeah, we played that proxy war. We played proxy war all the time. When Afghanistan, it's funny, it's flipped, right? When Afghanistan won, the first version of Afghanistan, when they were fighting the Soviet Union, we armed Afghanistan, right?
The Mujahideen, yeah. We did. We were the arming of them, and what happened? We left, and then the Mujahideen pretty much evolved into modern day ISIS over time. Yeah, it's I was listening to the whole what's going on in Ukraine, and they have the government established where if you're 18 to 60, you can't leave the country. All men who are 18 to 60 can't leave the country. Could you imagine that? Think of this in this country. That think it's in the state. You couldn't leave this state. We need you to fight. They'll and even if they'll give you guns or whatever guns they have, and then if you don't have guns, we'll help you make Molotov cocktails. I'm like, wow. Think about that.
It's called the draft.
Yeah, I know. It's conscripted.
That's what it's called.
It didn't bother me that much.
I'm like, wow, man.
It's called a draft. You draft it now.
I think what's funny, Putin's conditions for pulling out is that Ukraine has to demilitarize and then agree to align itself to Russia, and I wouldn't take that deal.
No,
it's Mikey. It's the okie doke he's been playing with a lot of things he keeps saying and doing. If anything, it sounds like it's out of George Bush's playbook. We're saying we're doing this while we're doing the other. Because again, it's a war of narratives. They were the aggressors. No, you're clearly the aggressors. No, they were aggressive. We're liberating a free country. It's the same shit.
And Putin playing checkers, bro. He playing chess. He's playing chess.
Fuck
and
Putin.
we are instead of the United States being proactive, we're being reactive, and
we're weakened.
Just as far as even as far they just I think today said that they're going to sanction his personal wealth or something like that. Putin's. We just decided today when the EU and UK, they already had decided to sanction Putin's personal wealth. We decided 20 hours later. I wonder if UK and EU didn't decide to do this. Everybody was already asking when Biden came out and gave his press conference, why aren't you going at Putin specifically and going?
Because
and
he's
he would not.
But realistically, what can the U.S. do? Realistically,
Exactly.
What can no, because we can't get into it. We can't get into an all-out conflict with Russia.
Yeah, we can't.
We can't. What can we do?
And Ukraine is not a part of NATO right now. We don't.
Even with the SWIFT code,
like shit, but
even with the SWIFT code,
putting sanctions.
The rest of Europe didn't want to. The rest of Europe didn't want to. They wanted to cut off the SWIFT code here. The rest of Europe didn't want to do it, so he didn't do it.
Right, exactly. Because they still getting fuel from Russia.
Yeah, so it's not all the U.S.
You need the SWIFT to navigate.
DJ, what would you have liked us to do in this situation?
Huh?
What would you have liked us to do in this situation?
Who, me?
Yeah.
Who you asking?
You're the president.
What would I have liked the United States?
It's 2028, President Frederick. What would you do?
Yeah.
I had
President Frederick. I'm all about it.
It's almost too late, in my opinion. He's gonna take Ukraine.
So if you could go back a week, go back a month.
Yes. Let it finish.
Because they said, he also said, with the sanctions that we put in place, we're gonna wait a month from now to see whether we're gonna put more on. That's gonna be too late, bro.
Yeah.
But you gotta wait a month. You can't.
Bruh. Ukraine will be gone. Ukraine will be gone probably before this weekend is over. Russia will probably have.
Okay,
Ukraine.
but
how does that affect the greater United States?
It also doesn't answer my question.
Russia.
So DJ, your answer is you just want to get more sanctions faster?
Say again.
It sounds like your only answer was to do more sanctions just faster, but like we're already coordinating with our allies to do more sanctions. We're already doing that. What should we have done differently, even if we had a month?
Should have been, my opinion, the sanctions should have been put on was a long time ago when he first started.
I would
like to be clear about something. We have sanctions
I agree with you
that
they should have been put on a long time ago. And when he said a couple months, I was thinking the same thing as you initially, but I was educated on this earlier because think about it. You got $1 million, right? Or let's say you got $10 million, and they cut you off today. I mean, you still gonna have 10 million tomorrow, but after a few months, then you're gonna start feeling it. So that's what they mean by a few months. So it can't sanctions today ain't gonna do nothing tomorrow.
Yeah.
No, it is.
That's what I was educated. So they should have done it earlier, but he didn't.
Yes.
Well, I mean, but Putin ran. What was it? Not the KGB. What's the initials? DJ.
KGB. Yeah. He's a former KGB agent.
Yeah. But no, I mean, he knows how to hide money. He probably has liquid assets. The sanctions they're gonna hurt him some, but they're not. He's not hurting. He's not like a businessman.
You can't hurt him by sanctions.
It's not like a businessman where you can get some forensic accountants, this, that, and the other, and you can dig up the money. We ain't gonna be able to dig up the money. He runs the country.
Guys, aren't we in part in this situation because I was under the impression that some of this rise in Russian activity for the last few years is they invaded another country. We put sanctions on them. I know when Donald Trump came to office, he also put sanctions on them. It's been kind of this constant thing of we catch them doing some meddling or some fuck shit, we put more sanctions on them, while also saying like, hey, now Ukraine is stabilizing off and they say they want to impose NATO. In Russia's shoeprints or footprints or whatever, it's not exactly crazy to do this before they join NATO because then you're more blocked in. If anything, it kind of seems like, relative to Vladimir Putin's standpoint, doing this now before there's another NATO ally to box them further out of the region was a smart move. But again, the sanction thing is something we've already been doing. This is why I'm still trying to think, what could we actually have done to stop this? Get Ukraine into NATO faster?
what we could have done as the United States, what we could have done is provide the natural gas and the oil to those Western countries,
Not really
EU
feasible.
and UK. Those countries are getting who get fuel from Russia. The way to hurt Russia, somebody said it. They said Russia is a gas station with a nuclear bomb.
So we go green
That's
faster.
where they get their money from. And if we were able, because
if only we had a Green New Deal.
We were the biggest export of natural gas and oil,
which would have been bad for the Americans here who live in those areas.
Until January.
DJ, it sounds like you're making a go green deal because that would get us off of Russia's natural oils and shit.
That's not how oil works in the world. That's not oil. Oil works in the world wherever you mine it. It goes into sort of an international reserve and then it's sold. So oil that we drill and mine here, it's not American oil. It goes into an international thing and then we buy it out. That's the way oil works. And a lot of folks don't know that. And when we think that we're leasing land to dig up oil in this country, that is going to directly benefit us. No, that's not how it's designed.
I have a question.
I don't agree with that, bro.
No, research it.
Stockpile it. I was just telling you the
truth. Research it. When we dig American oil, it doesn't stay. It's not American. It doesn't stay here. It goes to the corporations, international stuff, and then it's sold. Like it's not
the corporations. They're the ones that actually mine
exactly.
Like it's just more of a corporate thing. So I have a question for DJ. What do you think? How do you think the situation would be if Trump was still president? Where would we stand at this point?
Because he was kind of chummy with
president,
right? Exactly. Let's say
I didn't even want to entertain
let's say election year 2020, Trump wins. He's president now. A year later, what do you think would be done now? How do you think things would be? Where do you think we would stand in this situation? Do you think Putin would still invade Ukraine?
I mean, people thought Trump was crazy. People thought NATO. So it didn't happen. The thing is, we're gonna go with facts.
Well, I'm providing you. I'm giving you a what if scenario. What if scenario? So, this is alternative universe.
What if what?
Trump wins. He's president a year now. This is 2022. Trump has been president a year. His second term.
You can't use that because things are in motion. You're basically saying if Trump is gonna inherit what is happening right now. And
why wouldn't he?
Okay, wait. Why
wouldn't he?
Let me give you an alternative. Wait, hold on a second. DJ, let me give you an alternative scenario. Trump runs in he runs in what is it, 2024. He wins. Russia has annexed Ukraine. Now they're into Estonia. It's 2025 and they invade Estonia. Trump is president for his second and last term because you can't be president for more than 10 terms. How does Trump handle it?
I think it's a done deal. I think it's all my personal opinion. Nothing can stop Putin from doing what he's doing.
Agreed.
I just wonder what would be
agreed.
How
there's nothing that can stop Putin at this point from doing whatever he wants to do.
Yeah, I believe. But I wonder how would Trump
to the head.
How would he word it? Even that would
it's the new world. He got to accept it for being the new world it is.
Yeah.
Streets, I don't understand the question.
He has now annexed all those countries he lost back into the
fold.
The fold of Russia.
Yo, Streets, let's be honest here. With everything we know Trump has said in regards to NATO, chances are very good he wouldn't want to get involved. He would just be like, it's not a problem. It'd be a waste of money. Why do we keep getting involved over here in all these other issues? Not our problem. Which is what he's normally said during this. To be fair, while he was president, he did put sanctions on Russia. But again, would he want to be involved in this type of shit? He'd easily say, not our problem. Which would, I'm sorry, if I was Vladimir Putin and we have a president that doesn't care what the fuck I do, I would just do my shit faster.
Yeah, probably would.
I don't really
probably
think
feeling
that.
That's a
I don't think that.
hypothetical. That's a
Again,
Go ahead.
you've heard
It's a
what Trump said
hypothetical.
about the NATO shit. He literally thought it was a waste of money. To be fair, I do
He said,
like that
nope.
he got most of his NATO allies to
He
like start
didn't-
paying their fair share. But
If
again,
Trump was president, it wouldn't have happened. I mean, Putin is flexing, like we were talking about earlier. Putin is flexing. If Trump was president, I don't think Putin would have needed to do it or would have won, because him and Trump was already boys. He was already popping dude up. I personally don't think if Trump was president, he wouldn't have done it now. But if he does it again, this president, what?
Trump wasn't going to stop him.
Maybe he's flexing for Trump so that Trump can win in 24.
Exactly. That's my point. I don't think if Trump
I really don't think we're that, like with this issue specifically. I think this is more to do with what Russia getting what it wants. And
I think it's more about Russia
speculating on how different Americans respond to what Russia.
Just to refresh people's memories,
I think it's more about
Ronald Reagan, candidate Reagan, had a deal with the folks that had the Iranian hostages not to free him until he got elected.
That's so he got elected. Yeah.
Stranger things have happened. It's already history.
I was under the impression with that one, the deal to get them released was already getting worked on like 6 months in advance.
Right. Carter had worked out a deal.
It feels attributed to Ronald Reagan, not entirely.
No, he had a deal that they would hold them until he won.
Yep.
He did.
And let me tell you, because I watched every time when it came to Ukrainian, I watched when Biden got up there, when he ever decided to do a press briefing. I'm surprised he took questions, the four questions he took this time. But when he said, will a minor incursion, then we'll decide if it's he basically gave Putin a green light.
We all just said, no matter what, Putin was going to do this. Can we not? I really do not want to turn this into one of those things where it's like, my president was this. No, this shit was going to happen regardless.
But not necessarily under Trump.
Oh, my God.
That's what we're saying.
I don't think it would have happened under Trump, to be honest. I think this is a Putin thing. I think he's flexing. And I just don't think he would have done it. Trump was already
might not have
he's not so
the longer
bad.
he waits, the longer Ukraine would have had a chance to be a part of NATO. That's the timetable for this. When Zelensky got elected and they were getting more democratic and less corrupt, I'm not saying Ukraine's perfect, but it was getting better. What Putin was seeing was like, man, if I don't act now, I'm not going to get the chance to get the new puppet state. So I better act very quickly. That's the timetable, regardless of whatever the fuck we're doing.
You know who I won't be surprised to do shit next? Dude from North Korea. Because Trump ain't there. That's another one to show up Biden. Like,
South Korea.
Launch missiles, testing, do something.
South Korea. That thing he does all the time.
Hit Japan. Something.
Japan.
I would not be surprised.
North Korea is always flexing its missiles. It never attacks anything because they know saying they hit someone, we hit them, bye-bye. They always test their shit out.
But again, when Trump was there, him and Trump were boys. Oh, that's my friend. That's this, that.
Yeah, he was
smart. He's way smarter than Trump.
I think
way smarter than Trump.
It worked abstract.
Okay, wait, hold on a second.
Damn, we didn't get it.
Let's go back. Let's go back to North Korea. If North Korea sees something coming from the United States, if they bomb South Korea, we were talking, David was talking about semiconductors. Where's all of the Samsung phones that everybody has manufactured?
Right.
And don't look, it's
what about Japan right there?
It's all connected. He's not gonna sit back. He'll probably go scorched earth with his personality.
Yep.
They're gonna take me out. I'm gonna take out significant parts of their infrastructure.
I believe the technical term is mutually assured destruction.
What I'm saying is like Korea. Korea knows that they can't win against the United States, but they can hurt the United States by damaging I'm pretty sure they got those things aimed, those missiles that they've been testing at key infrastructure points that's based in Asia that the United States depends on.
And also, we talk about them failing. That could be on purpose. Obviously, it's on purpose. I mean,
to make it look like they're inept. That's Sun Tzu, Art of War.
Yep.
Sun Tzu.
Good point. Good point. Good point. Good point.
And,
So,
and it
yeah.
all began with the way we handled Afghanistan. These guys know Putin people been around him for years.
Fuck, is it our fault that their government didn't cool? Yeah, all right.
What?
Sure. How is this our fault that that the government they had didn't actually fight? I never understood the takeaway on this. If anything, I've been trying to tell all my friends this who keep complaining about this. We're not there anymore. We're not there willy-nilly killing civilians anymore.
We should have never gave up Bagram. We should have kept even if there was 2,500 people there.
So we should keep staying in places where every year we kill 10,000 civilians.
We got people staying in Japan. We got people staying in Korea. We got people all over the world. Abstract. We got bases all over the world.
This is my point, though. I did not want us to keep staying in Afghanistan after we knew this was not going to work. This type of shit never does. So what? We were just going to keep staying?
Afghanistan geography is not conducive to a long drawn out war. You can't win.
Bingo.
And I'm not saying a war with an agreement with the Taliban.
We should have thought about
an agreement with the Taliban, and we stayed there. We could have had more of a say in how they running things now. We still got Americans in Afghanistan.
That part I can agree with. We definitely did better.
I apologize because I broke up for a little bit while I was driving, but why are we in Afghanistan? Does anybody know why?
Afghanistan
had to kill Osama bin Laden.
Afghanistan has a lot of precious minerals that we like.
Yeah, minerals.
Precious minerals that's tied to our current level of technology. We need them for our current.
Yeah, iterate. But yes, absolutely.
Especially those batteries.
Yeah, part of it, right? Part of it was to also subside Al Qaeda.
Yep.
Right, and to maybe
that was the impetus.
Yeah, really was part of that was to not have, not to, even though it's a false sense of security, we're there to sort of thwart, that part of the world coming at us from a terrorist attack perspective, right?
Yeah.
And also, let's be honest, we're right next to Russia. Anytime we can land grab, so to speak, and be on top of Russia, so Russia wasn't necessarily happy with us being right there. Either, right? I know
we should never have gave up Bagram Air Force Base.
Yeah. I mean, I tend to think that U.S.
kind of runs it now.
I think we by right had at least reasonings to go into Afghanistan, 9/11, whole war on terror. But you look at that, and then the whole thing with Iraq, it's like splitting us up between two countries. Was that a larger mistake that may have led to us staying in Afghanistan for 20 years? Say we don't invade Iraq. We just concentrate all our forces in Afghanistan. Maybe things go differently. I don't know.
Yeah, well,
process.
I
really think Iraq.
Why did we leave Afghanistan? Why?
Why did we leave Afghanistan?
Wasn't it Trump's plan to leave Afghanistan?
Yeah, well, it wasn't Trump's
plan.
It was many presidents' plan. Obama was thinking the same thing.
Why did we leave? Why did we leave Afghanistan?
Because we felt like we have a better handle on Al-Qaeda, and it was no longer
the 20 people was tired of the 20-year war and stuff.
Tired of young men dying.
20-year war.
And look where we at. And look where we at today. And look where we're at today.
Where are we today?
But wasn't it Trump's plan to leave? But why didn't follow through on what Trump was planning to do anyway? Right?
He did.
Biden was following through.
Trump had stipulations in place. Trump had stipulations in place that the Biden administration didn't.
I don't know about that.
Go ahead and tell me,
DJ, you may want to double check that one. He did not.
Tell me
when he set up the deal with them, he didn't ask for anything. He just set up the deal. Double check that one, man. They met
Well,
no
what's the deal?
requirements, and there was a deal. Double check.
There was what? Say that again.
I'm saying double check that. If I remember correctly,
Double
there
check.
wasn't a deal for them to get an agreement. It was to say, you guys don't fight us, we don't fight you. That was the extent of the deal. They didn't, so we're like, okay, peace treaty. And then it was we were supposed to what leave it that May, and
You're
then
saying
it got pushed back.
So you're saying that simple explanation you gave me was the result of our department.
I'm saying it wasn't one of those conditional things.
That's what they came up with. That's what they came up with out of all that negotiations with the Taliban.
Yes, I'm saying it wasn't one of those conditional treaties.
That's all that came out of that.
DJ, you can look it up yourself. Bring it up.
Bro, listen. There were stipulations.
Okay, what are they?
There were more stipulations than what
were the stipulations?
As far as letting people out, getting Americans out of the country, allowing people of America. There were stipulations about how they was going to go forward as a country, and also as far as continuing with how they treat their women and the progress they made with that. There's all little things involved in these, and they were agreeing to it.
Well, actually, we really didn't have an agreement with the Taliban per se. We were leaving. The Taliban told us to get out by a certain point. We said, okay, you can't tell us when to get out, even though. But what happened was Biden gave a date, right, and said we're going to be out by X point. So he stuck with that date. But we really weren't like think about this. We still have money that the Taliban has or Afghanistan has in bank accounts that we have frozen. So we don't have some agreement with the Taliban. We just was saying, well, we don't really want to fight you, but if you attack our soldiers while we're trying to evacuate Americans, we're going to have a problem. But they're really like they didn't agree to. They were trying to show that, hey, we're better than what we used to be. See, we're going to let women,
and that we're part of the world. We want to be a part.
Yeah,
we want to be a part of it.
But they're really not, and they don't really have a government.
Again, I'm trying to look it up. I'm not seeing anything concrete in the deal.
It's that Trump bypassed the Afghan government to negotiate directly with the Taliban. The deal with them that he signed on February 29th, 2020 promised to pull all U.S. troops out by May 1st, 2021. Biden did not reverse this course when he took office. He pushed it back
to August.
So then it was predicated on them doing.
There were stipulations.
What are the stipulations? It's predicated on what?
Say that again.
DJ is saying this was predicated they have to do X, Y, and Z or no deal. I'm saying it wasn't predicated on anything. We just made the deal. That's why I keep asking. Predicated on what? I'm in a tab on my own page trying
Trump
to find
was ready. Out. Trump would have ended the deal.
Be specific.
People like they're saying the Biden administration. They were saying, well, we're going on a deal that Trump made. The Biden administration did not have to stick with that date, that May date or whatever it was that they had this. They didn't have they ain't never stuck with nothing else Trump did.
Well,
they have stuck with other things. That's a false equivalency, and I don't want to move the goalposts. We are arguing something very specific. What was the deal predicated on? What did they have to do to get the agreement? I don't care about the other stuff. I care specifically about this. The way I've heard it, every which way but loose, was this. We just made the agreement. It's not they had to do this, they had to do that, or the deal's off the table. It was no,
it was also
because we're tired of throwing money away.
Because there was cooperation with the Afghan government as well. Taliban, it wasn't just
was that Taliban, like a signed deal that we
kick the Afghan out. There were agreements working with the Taliban to become this country that will going forward that will be a part of the UN and world organizations, and as far as as far as any human atrocities, eliminating those things, moving forward with the rights for women and stuff like that. There was all types of stuff like that working with the Afghan government and the Taliban. It wasn't
Yeah,
just
no,
the
no.
Taliban.
Well, no, the Afghan government already had women's rights for 20 years. I don't think, and there wasn't any deal with the Taliban for any of what you just said, DJ. There just wasn't. What Trump said is, and I don't know, maybe there was some funny stuff behind it, blah blah blah. But Trump said we're going to be up by a certain date, right? And Al Qaeda and the Taliban says, okay,
and the Taliban had no intention of honoring anything. They knew what they wanted to do.
Right. Right. So I don't think the U.S. government officially had some deal with the Taliban. No, they did not. Maybe behind the scenes there was something going on, but not some official.
And y'all got to understand the Taliban is tribal. They're not just one group. Am I right?
Exactly.
I know that's right. I'm agreeing with you on that aspect.
That's right.
But my earlier point was that Biden just followed through on Trump's promise.
Afghanistan never was going to. It was always a waste of time, and it was never going to work. They're not unified enough to be conquered.
Yeah.
And we shouldn't be going to other places and conquering them anyway.
I agree. As the Soviet Union, they learned the hard way.
With a group of Taliban leaders that the Afghan and United States might be meeting with, some other tribal leaders,
by the way,
may not agree with and was not even involved in that.
TJ, brother, see how in the past we've argued for 4 hours before? Do you want to admit I'm right on this one? Because I have the agreement in front of me.
Go ahead.
Please,
we've argued for 4 hours before. Do you want to admit that I'm right on this one? That the deal wasn't really predicated on anything? It was just, we're done wasting money. Here's the deal. You don't fight us, we'll leave.
That's what the agreement, that's what the written agreement says?
Do you want to link? You want me to send you the link to the agreement?
Yeah, that's all it says.
Would you like to share the agreement?
It's a 4-page thing. Oh,
that's all it says.
Share it. Don't read it. Share it.
Share it.
Who is that signed? That's signed by Secretary of
Trump.
State.
1 second.
We're getting the hell out by and that's it. That's the agreement.
Pretty much.
Yeah, it's called citing your sources.
I'm waiting on you, man. You sharing?
Yeah, is it sharing on number 1 or number 2?
It's, I don't know. You tell me. It's on your screen. It's sharing. You're the one that decides.
So the point is, this ain't all start with Afghanistan. That was my point of all this. It didn't start with that. If Biden was following through with what Trump said he was going to do. That was my point in all of this.
Yeah.
When you said all of this started with what happened with Afghanistan.
That's right.
It wasn't just starting with.
Oh, there it is.
Okay.
$19,
He talked about us lowering our forces.
Okay, he had stipulations.
Us, not them. What are we going to do? We break our own deal because we don't pull out our forces?
After the announced complete withdrawal in timeline, new presence. Taliban will start intra-Afghan negotiations with Afghan sides on March 10, 2020. Permanent and comprehensive ceasefire will be an item of the agenda of the intra-Afghan dialogue. When they're talking ceasefire, I assume they're talking Taliban and U.S.
I'm sure it's opposing forces.
Yeah, because our fight wasn't with the Afghans.
Oh,
that's one right there. That there's a ceasefire. Right? Am I right? Number 4.
Let's keep reading. Let's see if there says anything about us saying like
number 4. It says that there will be a
permanent
ceasefire.
And comprehensive ceasefire began. Yeah.
So that's a stipulation right there, right?
No, the ceasefire is the result of a stipulation.
Right.
And I would venture to say,
and comprehensive ceasefire will be an item on the agenda of the intra-Afghan dialogue and negotiations. The participants of the negotiation will discuss the date and modalities of a permanent and comprehensive ceasefire, including joint implementations and mechanisms. So ceasefire, and I'm assuming when they say ceasefire with Afghan and Taliban.
With the Taliban, we had
The Taliban.
With Taliban.
With that between the Afghan and Taliban, that there will be a ceasefire. Because the Afghan and US was not at war.
Right. We installed the Afghan government.
Yeah.
Well,
and
right.
I would venture to
So
say
when they're
that
talking ceasefire, they're talking ceasefire between
proxy.
Taliban. They're talking ceasefire between the Taliban and Afghan.
We don't know. It could.
That's the more likely. It's more likely that, right? The Taliban and the Afghan army.
Right.
Now I would venture to say
that's a stipulation.
Not the ceasefire is the result of something else that they would have agreed to. I think we just said we were leaving.
If there's no ceasefire,
we're leaving.
There's no ceasefire,
we can't have anything else.
Right.
Can't be fighting and having a agreement.
Then we're not going to withdraw troops.
We're not leaving if we're fighting.
That's something I think Trump had said.
Right. So so it really wasn't a stipulation, right? Even though the negotiation, they were saying Trump said we're leaving. So that DJ in essence is the stipulation, right? The exit strategy. We're leaving, and the Taliban said, "Well, if you're gonna leave, you better leave by this date," right? And U.S. didn't really pay my mind, but Trump put a date out there. I think maybe that was the behind-the-scenes agreement.
I think that's isn't this the date right here, August 27th?
I thought it was earlier than that. Someone said it was earlier.
Yeah, I thought it was
August.
May. I thought it was May.
I said August.
It was May 1st.
September, but maybe. Okay, May 1st was the original date, maybe.
Yes, that Trump, they agreed to with Trump.
Okay.
This objective will start diplomatic engagement with other members of the United Council and Afghan to remove members of the Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan, which is not recognized by the United States as a state and is known as the Taliban, from the sanction list, with the aim of achieving this objective.
Well, it's funny. While we're fighting over this, which is what everyone wants. You know who the real culprit was that was ignored during this 20-year war?
Who's that?
General corruption?
No, Saudi Arabia.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
I think almost all the hostages, all the terrorists on 9/11. No. All the terrorists
were from Saudi.
From Saudi Arabia.
Saudi Arabia.
Yeah.
Okay. But what are we going to war for? We went because and I love, God bless Colin Powell.
But the monarchy.
Yeah, just come back to what you said. I know what you want to say. To me, as much, and I really have a lot of respect for Colin Powell, and I'm definitely not Republican. But that to me is a stain on his. Even to his death. I watched him and he admitted to it, and it's like,
But he owned it.
He did own it, and I respect him for owning it. But it's a huge stain on his.
It was
a blemish.
It's a blood-soaked legacy on the.
Well, guess why though? Why? Right? Because we remember George was doing for what his father didn't do. Remember, his dad went into Iraq first, but he stopped before going to Baghdad. Remember the original war. So then Saddam was talking a lot of smack to his father. So when W came in, he wanted to finish that. So 9/11 gave him.
He gave him proxy. He gave him reason.
Yeah, like, oh, right, perfect. Now we're gonna find a reason. So he told him, find a reason. Go find a reason.
Yeah, we made the mistake. We made the mistake in the Persian Gulf War of allowing Saddam Hussein to keep the helicopters, because then he went. Soon as we allowed him to, soon as they surrendered, they went and used the helicopters and attacked the Turks, who was our allies.
Kuwait?
Yeah, no, not Kuwait. No, Kuwait is how the Persian Gulf War
the original war started.
Right. So, and then when we attacked,
the Kurds, the Kurds,
in 3 days.
Yeah, the
Kurds. Yeah. We allowed them to keep their attack helicopters.
Well, it wasn't the helicopters he used on the Kurds as much as he used a lot of poison gas and stuff, right? And he was just, but the point is that it wasn't Saddam that was the bad guy. It was Saudi Arabia. But we know why they wouldn't go after Saudi Arabia, right?
He ain't gonna mess
with that monarchy.
Not with that oil. Not with that oil.
We'll just sell them guns.
It's like all that bullshit when they killed that
reporter. Stay in Trump's hotel.
Exactly. Not just that, we sell Saudi Arabia billions of dollars of military equipment, and there's a lot of politics behind that, right?
Yeah. All the
some of those companies are right here in Connecticut.
Khashoggi, and all the evidence behind that, but it gets all moved away. Well, well, we didn't do it. These dudes did it. Yeah. Okay.
No, you're right. That's why they killed Khashoggi.
We're about to have a show in Saudi Arabia in what, a month, a couple of days. WWE puts on a show there every year, and the last time they did, because it's Saudi Arabia, they held all the talents hostage, and they weren't allowed to leave the country for about 7 hours. Not until they could negotiate the pay.
Wow. Interesting. But I mean, I don't know. It's not
Kennedy McMahon.
It can't be money. Why there must have been something else behind that. Saudi Arabia
was something else.
They
weren't hostages though.
Money is not their problem.
Yeah, it's definitely not money. It's some other issue.
They're
rolling money.
So David, based on the document that Abstract showed, is it safe to say that a ceasefire between Taliban and the Afghanistan was part of the agreement for the pullout?
Well, yeah, but not the ceasefire. The ceasefire is the result of it's. I think the agreement itself was, hey, if you're going to leave, it was one of those things where it was happening anyway. It wasn't a real agreement. We were wanting to leave. I think the agreement was the fact that we put a date to it. Trump, agreed to put a date was kind of it. I think the agreement was the date that Trump agreed upon.
Yep.
But Trump, when Trump came in saying, I'm going to get out of Afghanistan, right?
Yep.
Yeah, it was a campaign promise.
Yeah, it was, and so he wanted to fulfill that, right? So
with
agreement
between Taliban, with the agreement between Taliban and Afghanistan.
Not only that, he realized too. You see that part of the world. The Afghanistan, they didn't really want to fight. They didn't really want to stand up for their country and fight. He looked around and said, we don't. They're not. They're only propped up by the U.S. military. Once we leave, they're going to collapse on themselves, and we can't keep having our blonde-haired, blue-eyed boys die for a country that really doesn't have anything.
I really want to point this out. We've known that shit for years, and we did nothing about it.
And then the thing, you look at it like we leave Afghanistan, they like within a week they took it over. I'm like, damn, y'all couldn't hold it for a month.
I mean, again,
don't do nation building.
But you know what, though?
Don't
I think Leon.
Wait a minute. When did they take it over? When did they take it over? Think about it. When did they take it over?
They took it over.
When did they? When did the
Taliban
start taking over?
Yeah, before we left.
After Trump left.
Before we left,
it started.
They already took the countryside. They already had taken the countryside. They were right outside.
That's when they took over in a matter of days. In a matter of less than a week, they took over
because the whole country. Because the fake ass government that we propped up didn't fight.
Right.
But Trump was already gone.
Yep.
Yeah, it wasn't Trump.
Trump was already gone.
So
never understand.
Do you think? All right. I mean, this is sort of Monday morning quarterbacking. Do you think our foray into Afghanistan and Iraq is possibly our biggest tactical blunder of our times recently?
Afghanistan and Iraq.
The wars in Afghanistan and Iraq.
But Afghanistan, yes.
Do you think it's our
absolutely?
Because you think about how long we were there, how much money we spent, how much
many
manpower
people we killed,
how many people we killed, how many people we lost,
how many of us died.
How many of us died? Do you think in 50 years will this be looked at as one of our biggest worst military blunders? That's why I keep harping back on the thing with Colin Powell. This is going to,
well, he didn't send us in Afghanistan.
He didn't send us in,
but I think it probably
was a lot of the reason why we were there.
Weapons of mass destruction
kept us there.
See, I don't know if we can answer that because I don't know if we know the real reason why we were over there.
Exactly. Like I said, the
real benefit that it provided for the people who wanted to start.
Here's the thing about you're right.
Just have the video for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not. Afghanistan is about to have a real important value going forward, right? Because I think Leon said it earlier. They have precious metals that are needed, and guess who's already friending Afghanistan to some degree? China. China's already coming in behind the scenes, kind of saying, "Hey, Taliban." because
They
those
took off,
fields,
they took over Bagram Air Force Base. They now have
so
Bagram Air Force Base
we're gonna end up we're playing. China's playing
that
chess
we
with
built
us.
and
We're playing
paid for.
checkers.
China is
Man.
playing chess.
And
China is
personally,
playing a
China-
lot
China's
of chess.
going-
China's going
I
to
don't think the
Africa.
Taliban had any intention of doing the right thing, whether we pulled out with Biden president or Trump president. They already knew what they were going to do. They were just waiting until the U.S. forces were out.
I agree,
If we
but
had left, go ahead.
I agree with you fully, Leon. I don't disagree, but my point is that if we're playing chess, we don't pull out if we understand that from a technology perspective, from raw materials needed in all of our computer systems, advanced systems going forward, they have the raw metal, they have the raw precious. Maybe we shouldn't have pulled out if that's the angle. Maybe we should have been.
We should have kept Bagram.
Yeah,
Yes.
you know,
Let's keep killing 10,000 civilians and
No, I
wrongfully,
agree.
mostly getting the targets wrong with our push a button drone strikes. God, I love it.
But you know what, though? I'll say this. You know, it's easy, and it's easy. The question sometimes you got to ask is this: when you're fighting these wars, is do you risk young American men lives in this war? And I know the easy answer is let's get out of there. But you know, is it better to put drones in there and make an error here and there, or to send soldiers in to die? And it's tough.
And not one soldier died, and not one American soldier died in the last year and a half or whatever when Trump was in office. Not one soldier died in Afghanistan.
David,
Until we pulled out.
I understand your point in the sense of protecting American soldiers and lives using drone strikes, which the risk to American soldiers is minimum. The problem is there was a Pentagon report that came out. 90% of the time we use these drone strikes, we killed civilians. That last big drone strike we did with that car, that was what most of them were like. Us getting the wrong target and eliminating them with extreme prejudice. I cannot in good conscience say that's
you know what? Game.
You know what, Abstract, I agree with you, but that's war.
I don't.
They played a different game.
Not only that,
That's war.
Here's what they did. It's not that. It's not. I don't necessarily agree. Here's what happened. It's not so much
they
so the
killed
wrong target.
civilians
They
too.
purposefully, they do not value their women and children at all.
No.
And they hide amongst
hide
their
in
children.
hospitals.
They put themselves in places.
Yes,
now,
they do.
I'll tell you this, my brother, and I don't know facts because I don't like arguing without in facts, but all I know is this: since 9/11, we have not had another terrorist attack on our soils. And sometimes it's ugly when you're fighting these wars, right? Because you're fighting with people who will cut your neck off in a second if they get a chance to.
Block, one person.
So it's not like
One
a nice,
person
friendly
got a
war.
whole block.
Hey, listen, man, look in the Bible. Look in the Bible from the beginning of time, right? They have that area of the world has been at war. Since man has been on Earth, they've been at war. And I don't agree with women and children because they don't choose to be there. Look at the last terrorist we got the other day. He was hiding with his family. When they came, what did he do? Blow himself up first, killed his wife and kids. They don't see life the same way as we do. So they put themselves in places. Now, sometimes, unfortunately, I got to go get this one guy. And because of the way I'm set up, I got to kill 10 of his family members. And we in America, we've gotten to this place now where politically we use it against each other. I'm not agreeing. I hear you. And I'm not saying it's the right thing to do. But war, like Todd said, and especially these wars that are not conventional, are ugly.
In abstract, hold up. Look at it like this. You're talking about a Pentagon report where they detail what drones did. You talking about that is the first time I'm hearing it. But when you're talking about when you're talking to middle America and sending their sons over the war to die or using drones, what are you going to say? You're going to say we're going to use drones.
Afghanistan.
We don't know.
What about?
We don't know about what
that's all I'm
happened.
going to say. We shouldn't be there.
IED.
Oh, wait. So Aaron,
go or pull out earlier once we got Osama bin Laden.
Let me, Aaron. What would be your president in 2001? 9/11 happens. What would you do? What would be your How would you go about choosing things?
Yeah.
How would you go about
small scale operation where we get the specific people who are responsible? Don't lie about weapons of mass destruction. Get in, get out, leave. A very small operation.
Okay, well, but wait. Hold on a second. Hold on a second. Aaron, you're in a conflict. It's war. So your side has, let's say
we were there for 20 years.
No, hold on a second.
Argument you're going to make, I'm just going to say
hold on a second.
Let him finish.
Let him finish. Abstract.
No. Your side has tanks. The other side has baseball bats and Molotov cocktails. So you pull up the tank, you have the soldiers get out the tank and pull out Molotov cocktails and pull out bats so that they can fight equally. That's not how war works. If you have a superiority, you use it. I'm not saying that it's right or wrong, but that's how war works. You have superior weapons, you utilize them.
What Aaron is saying is hey, we should have never been there this long. But I think
he's saying that there should never be any war, but that's not the human condition.
I'm trying to
the human condition is that there's always conflicts and war.
Yes, there. In a sense, if you have superior firepower that can minimize the risk to your soldiers, ideally, if you can shoot them from the tank where they're away from infantry, when they're away from people that can kill them, you do what you can to minimize risk of your own forces.
Tanks have fired and killed civilians also.
I always say
how
this,
they played,
no, I agree.
Yes.
You can't. Here's my rule. I give it a different example.
They didn't play that by those rules.
Here's my rule. When you go to fight war, it's different. It's like this, the way I look at this. And I hear your position, first of all, because you got to acknowledge what you're saying is, hey, we went there and we fought this war we shouldn't have. And hindsight is 2020. I get it, right? But when you go to fight wars, it's not no different than if someone corners you and you got a firearm. Don't pull it unless you're going to use it. Well, if you mess with America, and part of that is we have to sometimes we can be too nice, and we don't. That's why presidents get so old so fast. There are a lot of people wanting to kill. There are a lot of people wanting to kill Americans for very simple reasons, for very, very simple reasons at all. So sometimes you got to go in. I'm not saying if we got to go in, it's no mercy. I got to let you know that I'll kill every freaking person in your home. Everybody. You ever wonder this, Aaron, you ever wonder this, why China and Russia don't necessarily have that much problem with terrorism? Because they kill everything.
Because they will blow
kill everything.
Overwhelming force.
We're too democratic.
Yeah, but those are
only the United States have rules of engagement. When I was over there,
here's kind of the thing about this though, because we're not fucking as actually, Mike, make your point. I've done a lot of talking.
Are totalitarian states, like you're right. They just go in there and they bust up people like China. Those are examples of what not to be. Sure, you can have an orderly country as long as you're willing to brutalize their own people. And unfortunately,
I'm going to ask you a question, Mike, while you're talking.
Yeah.
And I'm playing devil's advocate. Where's your source on the brutalization of Chinese people?
I mean,
is that coming from America?
Was that a real question?
You're talking about the Uyghurs?
Wait.
Wait, Mike. Let Mike finish. Let Mike finish.
I was
Go ahead. Ask him a question.
But I do remember watching Tiananmen Square happen. Like they're not. We just have to decide what we are about, right?
Who are we?
Right.
I mean,
when you say we,
Americans,
as human beings, or we
as Americans, and it's just you can go to jail, like all those people that were protesting the war in Russia, in St. Petersburg, or wherever they're doing it. They risk Siberia. Well, yeah. I mean, they risk actual prison time. I mean,
or death,
or death. Like for as much as the right wing of this country has annoyed me, we're not. So like you've gotta get to the point where like you're burning down stuff, where you're attacking the Capitol before we even consider.
Mike, I'll say this to you though. I hear what you're saying, right? And that's exactly what white America wants you to think. They want you to think that America is fair.
Oh no! I have no illusions that America.
Okay, because it is far from it, and I mean, I'll tell you why. And I tell you why. And I got a brother that lives in Beijing for 10 years, right? He's in Malaysia now. The Chinese government, well, they have problems just like we have problems in our country, right? We oppress black and brown people every day. We make laws to make sure that black and brown people, white, we put silly laws in the books to ensure that we keep black and brown people down in this country, right? China is decided, and I'm not telling you it's right or wrong, but I'm just telling you it's a different perspective. They've decided this: we're not going to have super wealth, but we're going to move away from super poverty, which looks a little bit more like Canada, right? What America says is, hey,
go ahead. I'm sorry.
America says, hey, this is the land of the free, home of the brave. You can be anything, when it's really not true, right? It really is designed for a few. Think about the first Gulf War. Who made money off of the first Gulf War? Halliburton. Who was Halliburton?
You think you had an easier time making yourself like being wealthy or being well off here or in China? Because I feel like you're really understating the type of shit China gets up to.
No, I'm not saying. I don't know. Your question is if we are wealthier here, if it's easier to make wealth in this country.
As bad as America is, like if we're saying, I know there are some countries I think where I might do better in. It's not China, it damn sure ain't Russia.
No. What I'm saying is this: it's not that you can't. There is no country on earth that you can have a better opportunity at life than America in general. Okay, that's what I'm saying. What I'm also saying is that America also forgets a lot more people than you think. Okay, the bottom of America's barrel, which is more people than not. As time goes on, the top 1% of America is getting wealthier and wealthier, and the bottom of America is getting hungrier and poorer. Okay, and it's easy to look at it and go, well, we're fair and we're set up. And what I'm saying is, don't just shoot down one way of thinking. I'm not saying China is great, and I get that they have issues with the Uyghurs and they go about their process with just the iron fist, right? But they also have decided that, take COVID, for example. How many black and brown people died, hear me for a second, through this COVID, because what has happened early? Our government said this was a black and brown disease. That's what Trump said. So the whites in the South said, wait, oh, shoot, then we don't need to follow in that thing. And then we became this political divide. Hold on. What did China do? China said this.
China killed the doctor.
No. I get that, but you can't use a doctor.
They also
but what China said
lock
this.
people in their houses.
Yeah, because they don't want it spreading.
They also build hospitals in 2 weeks.
They don't want it spreading.
Exactly.
Folks.
Exactly. That's what
they don't want it spreading.
They also put
like you're really understating.
I'm not saying that the positive outweighs the
negative.
It's
not absolute.
I'm just saying that they have a different cultural mindset, and we tend to think that everybody. We're conditioned in America to think that everybody's the same, no matter what where they are around the world. That's not effing true. Like people are raised differently. People have different mentalities, cultures, and how they perceive the world. Everybody is not the same, and everybody does not believe the same things. Doesn't mean that one way
exactly
right or wrong or better than the other. It's
a
different way of
America's afraid of capital. We use the capitalist argument because a few benefit from that model. But to be honest with you, most will not in this country. Most of you were born, live, and die poor, thinking you're going to have a dream, but you don't have access to that dream.
The worst.
I'll give you an example. Do you know that Cuba already had like 5 versions of the vaccine? That they developed vaccine, vaccinated their own people. And I've actually started selling some of that vaccine over. America keeps you quiet on some of that because Cuba is considered a capitalist country. But I know this as a Jamaican, that while big, rich America was only coming to Jamaica to bleed it for its resources, because anybody that America helps, trust me, brother, go to Africa and see what they've done for oil. They bleed you, right? So in Cuba, when you come to Jamaica, some of our best high schools earlier on were built by Cuba. So it's easy to think the socialist model. I'm not saying I'm not socialist, I'm a capitalist, but I'm saying to you, don't just close your eyes on one way of thinking and thinking it's better at all. America doesn't help you.
Personal freedoms. You give up personal freedoms.
To some extent.
Our leaders, the worst thing, our leaders thinks the Constitution, if they had their way, there would be, the Constitution was probably, maybe when it comes to the common man living in America, was probably the greatest invention that our
And that constitution only was tied to you if you had assets.
Ever created.
Right?
And remember, the original definition of that constitution was we were property.
Yeah,
that
we were
definition
2/3.
changed with
but
the
also the
addition of other
constitution.
amendments.
You're going somewhere else. We're talking about the First Amendment, right? Which we all went through, Black Lives Matter and everything like that. We're talking about the Second Amendment, right? That defends all those constitutional
Wait, let me
rights.
stop. Let me stop you.
We stop them from doing what Canada just did.
Was written for white men, not white women, not everybody.
That.
Everybody's created equal men. All white men are created equal. If you weren't a white man, it didn't apply. So, like, we know what the words say now, and we know how we interpret them now. But what did they mean
exactly. That's
when
what
they
I
were
was
written?
say.
Exactly.
And like Martin Luther King said, be true what you said on paper.
And that same.
I also like the Constitution as well. It's just Olge's point is really poignant. It's important to keep in mind the definitions and what these terms mean, depending on the time period and the context we use them in, meant very different things.
Yeah, but
originally,
2/3 of man was still 2/3 of man.
It helps us.
Exactly.
It benefits us more now than then, though.
I wanted to return
that
to
Constitution benefits us
I wanted to return to one of
more
David's
than it
points,
does
though.
then.
I think I know what you mean about taking things from different perspectives. I actually love taking things from different perspectives. It's just I know a lot of bad things about China where it's not a good example for me. I know in some regards that I could say a more unified or stronger centralized government is probably more efficient at getting things done, but that also is often them doing things to the detriment of their people, like going through the details on how they handled the Olympics, from the blatant cheating to the housing people against their will, the double standards, all just generally all of the Olympics.
Pelosi told the Olympic people, don't you say nothing over there, because I won't be able to help you.
Abstract. There is no perfect system. If you look at Black and brown infant mortality rates since the existence of this country, like all the stuff that they proclaim and how they're supposed to be helping, and everybody has a square chance. And what was it? What did I just read? That doctors up until recently were trained to treat Black folks with high blood pressure differently. Like, this is supposed to be medical science, and you're supposed to treat everybody.
I'm not disagreeing with you, but differently.
But you're supposed to give treatment differently based on color. And there's different protocols, and the treatment isn't as effective or good. This is the system that which we live in. And because we are swimming in this water, like a fish don't know that it's in water. We don't know that we're in the water. We don't know that we're in the water of America and can't see necessarily the negative things, because this is what we're exposed to. We're pumped
dirty
the
water
that the water of China is so much different and worse and bad, this, that, and the other. Like, you really can't be too critical unless you are immersed in that system and you can fully, completely understand that system and that mindset of why they do what they do. And we don't know. We're looking at it through the American lens, and saying that this is not. It's not the same as us.
Our perspective, because then it becomes one of those things where I can never understand. I'm something different.
No, it's not that we can never understand. What I'm saying is,
I'll keep it in mind that I am, as an American, judging another country. That part's
in anthropology, there's different. When anthropologists go over to different cultures, there's ethnographic and ethnographic studies. Ethnographic means that you study from a distance, you study from afar, and basically you interpret it through your own lens. Ethnographic means you join the society, the culture, and you become one with them, so that you can kind of understand it from an internal perspective.
Ologist, can you do me a favor and text me exactly what you just said? I actually picked that up from my art history class, and it was one of the.
I got you.
It was one of the most.
You know what I think?
I ever learned.
I really
Go
think
to
that
the other culture. Don't bring the culture to you.
I really
enjoy that. Thank you, Ologist.
You know, one of the
live
things
in China, you don't know.
Right. I was going to say one of the things I think
have friends who are married or are flat out Chinese. It's not just I'm reading this online. I'm getting their perspective on how bad it is. There's a reason they left.
I'm saying that China controls.
So you're getting the biased sample. They left. They didn't
propaganda,
like it.
Anything that goes out, they
Yeah,
control it
for
so
reasons.
much.
It's I don't want to discount their experience. And I'm like, it's not just they're telling me horror stories in their own words.
I'm saying that you should talk to people that stay because they like it also, and not just folks who left.
I should also tell you this one. This was fun. You want to get a little wacky? You want to bring this mood down a little bit? I am an unabashed weeb. I love all things anime. I love virtual YouTubers. One of the recent stories that popped up is one of the virtual YouTubers I was watching, basically in YouTube internet personality, got in trouble because one of the games they were playing featured Taiwan. They didn't say anything, it just featured Taiwan. And boy, the Chinese state-sponsored harassment that this YouTuber got, that lasted for months. And then the company this person worked for got blacklisted by trying to defend their employee.
Also, folks
any other
on
company
social media
couldn't
in
work
the
with
United
them.
States, that's
All
I
they
gotta
did,
agree with Abstract
all
on that.
they did was play a game that featured Taiwan. It showed the flag for about 5 seconds.
I gotta agree with Abstract on that.
Did they say it? Did they make a political statement? But China saw it that way.
Do you remember that? Do you remember that Chinese player that accused official sexual harassment, sexual assault? Where's what happened to her? She's gone for like months, and she came back. Nothing happened. Nothing happened. And she came back and retired.
We're talking about and when she came back, she said nothing happened.
Hold on a second.
What I agree is that America, you can't look at the thing in terms of absolutes. America isn't this pristine, great country. It's everything that's going great for it. Capitalism isn't the greatest thing since sliced bread. It has its flaws. So does communism. So does socialism. So there's no perfect country. I'll just say there's no perfect country.
I just saw something on the news about the Chinese professor at Harvard that during the Trump administration, he was accused of selling secrets, and there was no correlation.
Right.
They never proved it. Is that similar to what China did, but in America? He had to take 2 years off of teaching.
Much more
probably.
often.
Well, he probably would have got tortured in time.
Yeah, I think the consequences might be
torture,
not being
Remember,
able to
China
teach
had no COVID cases during all of COVID-19. None at all.
You're considered a person that's committed treason against your own country because he was an American citizen. That's not torture from American standards. And now he's back in the classroom and he has to teach and feel some kind of way because there's probably students in there that's questioning him. Like there's
all it is, you just said it. He came back.
Different types of torture.
No, we're comparing if China had arrested him or charged him with espionage or whatever. What would China do compared to the United States? What do you think would have happened?
And you're not understanding the argument. There's equivalencies for each society and what the punishments are and the severity. In a totalitarian state, it's always going to be more physical, more deadlier, this, that, and the other. But in this state, they can sap away your livelihood. They can isolate you, and it can be a slow, painful, emotional and mental health type of thing.
I agree.
I'm not saying that it's physically just as stringent, but it can have very similar effects mentally on your well-being
and financially.
I would just argue, even with everything you just said, that even in the scenario, China's treatment would be worse. America is not perfect.
It will be. Yes, it will be.
We're not perfect.
And they might not have given him due process. They may not have given him due process. They may not have given him due process.
Okay.
When
how many folks in this country?
Can this not be China versus America whataboutism? Because that's what this is slowly becoming to.
No, this is.
I understand not wanting to criticize other countries and cultures. I really don't like that idea. It's just calling it for what it is not offensive or rude. It's just I'm calling it for what it is.
You need the context to understand why certain cultures do what they do and why they do
totalitarian government that has total control over everything.
It's a reason why they do it. It's a reason why they got there and how they got there. There's a reason why we do what we do and how we and how we got.
Apologist, that still equates to whataboutism.
No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't.
Okay. I'm fine talking shit about my own country. I'm fine talking shit about China.
The essence of whataboutism is comparing and contrasting, and that's what we're doing. We're comparing and contrasting two societies. So to throw the label of whataboutism, to use a new social meme that's supposed to put a negative thing when you're comparing and contrasting two separate ideas is, what's the word I'm looking for? Not really valid in when you're doing a comparing, when you're comparing and contrasting.
All I know is I was trying to say something negative about China, and then we started talking about America.
I'm just saying that you need to understand. You need to try to understand their perspective. Not that we really.
What is their perspective on making people disappear because it makes China look bad? That's pretty fucked up.
Let me.
Please don't cite an example from America. I know there's some.
No. Wait, hold on a second. We talked about this on previous cast. I brought it up about. We use Hiroshima, Nagasaki, the U.S. dropping
Nagasaki.
The U.S. dropping nuclear bombs on Japan. Nobody ever talks about the 60 plus cities that the U.S. Air Force firebombed, which was just as devastating with death tolls, injuries, this, that, and the other, because the Japanese society, the houses are built of wood and paper. They're closely together. They dropped these firebombs, incinerated, killed, burned down their homes, 60 plus cities. After we dropped the 2 bombs on it, we got the end of the war. They would have continued to firebomb the remaining cities in Japan, and the toll would have been better. Like, they used superior technology to end the war to prevent potential future deaths. And that was justified.
But that was ologist, but at the same time, we were just the first one to get it, because at the same time,
but
there was other powers trying to come up with the bomb.
No. My point isn't the first one to get it. We dropped it as a future deterrent. Maybe we didn't want to continue to firebomb because they knew how horrific that was, even though it wasn't being reported as such, and it did get the war to stop. The Japanese folks were never going to surrender to us, even if we were.
The emperor wanted to
cities. So we prevented.
Japan wanted to keep fighting that. The emperor was done after that.
And they would have continued to fight to support the emperor, because that's how their culture is built, and they would have done that.
Yeah.
To stop future deaths, we dropped the bombs, and they said we can't compete with that. They surrendered. So we prevented a lot. There were millions that died in the city. There were millions that died, but there was millions that were saved because we didn't firebomb their remaining cities. So sometimes, even though something's horrific, going back to the drone war, the drone stuff, sometimes you do stuff to prevent possible future deaths that could be more horrific than if you continue on the course that you're on.
20 years. Up until the end of this, every year, 10,000 civilians died. I'm not against that argument. I do understand, there's a quote from Art of War I like. In order to sheath the sword, you only have to draw yours. Sometimes the display of force is necessary to prevent other violence. Yeah. Imagine doing that for 20 years.
Abstract.
I like the argument. I don't like getting it, because then it's waving away the fuck ton of death we caused and getting wrong targets over a long period of time. And
abstract.
What?
We had precision drones. We had drones that shot precision missiles. Sometimes there were casualties of civilians, but you got to understand the other side had improvised explosive devices that they were setting up on roads. You had cars inside of market areas where they would blow up people and stuff. So they were doing things. They might not have a drone, but they had improvised explosive devices. They had BBs, vehicle explosive devices, where they were killing children and innocents. At least we tried with our intelligence And granted, there was gonna be some collateral damage, but at least we tried to
10,000
zero in where there wasn't.
a year.
They didn't care. They didn't care. As a matter of fact, they sent a child in there with the bomb on to kill.
I think you're
to take out
DJ. I know what you're trying to do. You're doing that thing you do a lot.
What?
You try to cite one example to get rid of the entirety of the argument. Also, I don't consider Afghanistan exactly equal to us. I believe you were the one that mentioned they were a bunch of random tribes of random groups. There wasn't an organized force for us directly to fight. Ergo, we shouldn't have been there for 20 fucking years to realize we weren't going to win, or there is no. Normally, if there's a power structure, if say you're head of a company, my way of taking over your company would be taking you out and assuming your role, and have everyone else is going to stay in place. That doesn't exist in Afghanistan. What kept happening is we kept hitting targets, we kept hitting the wrong targets. The families of those would survive, and they would join the opposition. Rinse and repeat over and over again by 20 years.
But you gotta understand that.
You know what though? I want to go back to my initial question, which I asked you, Aaron. What would you do differently? How would you? Let's say this is 2001. What happens in 9/11 happens. We have what you call it. We have the 9/11 tragedy. 3,000 people died. You have this.
I wouldn't invade Iraq.
Wait. No, let me finish. Let me finish. You have now. I don't know if you remember how it was with 9/11. It was people were just. America was crestfallen. All these reports and all this other stuff. People were just.
You know what? And we all came together. It was a huge
humbling thing for America.
Yeah, I think we're unified against a common enemy. Notice the problem of we went to go fight in Iraq, which didn't attack us.
So what I'm saying is, what do you think what would you have done differently? What do you think you could have done anything different?
A small operation geared towards getting the people responsible, not invading a country that didn't attack us.
You know what I think would have happened?
So how do you do that? How do you gather the intelligence to find out who was exactly behind it?
You know what would have happened?
Small operation. How do you do it?
You have you hostages? You torture them? Guantanamo Bay?
How do you do it?
That's kind of the problem. Torture doesn't yield good advice. Someone is going to tell you whatever the fuck they think you want to hear to avoid being tortured. Torture is not what we've been
told, but I wouldn't know because I've never tortured.
I'll put it to you another way.
I mean,
that's not how people work. If I start hurting you because you know there's something I want to tell you,
they got some advice from some people.
You're going to tell me what I want to hear.
Some people they got good advice from.
Here's what I think. I think
you are not going to defend torture. I don't know if you know
some people they got advice from. Abstract. Some people they got advice from that led to intelligence. They led us to getting Osama.
Side examples.
Side
examples.
I have disagreed with you. There are many studies that indicate that, like torturing people, you do not get the information you need, and
I understand.
There aren't many.
Wait, hold on.
But what I'm saying is that I think if the U.S. was really, I think what happened when 9/11 is that you had this huge incident that happened. This isn't just like this is a huge incident, worldwide, global. The U.S. basically kicked in the nuts. You know what I mean? On a global stage, in a sense, we felt we had to do something. So doing a small scale operation, you know what happened to you? After 6 months, after a year or something, you didn't do anything. You were like, "What are you doing? You're soft." People wanted something done. I mean, so
you're saying it's good Colin Powell lied.
I'm not saying it's good that he lied. You're saying that. I'm just saying that they didn't.
They
had to do
because again,
something.
Here's the problem.
Iraq
didn't attack us, and we went to Iraq.
I didn't say anything about Iraq. I said, what would you do?
That's where we went. That's where we went after 9/11.
No.
We went to Afghanistan, then we went to Iraq.
Two different wars.
Different wars. We went to Iran. We went to Afghanistan first, then Iraq. But what I'm saying is that if you were in a situation, you're president at the time, you had to do something. And I think what happened was that
a big fan of this idea of as much as the crown acts upon you, you're the one wearing it. This is
heavy.
Okay,
and it's heavy.
Wait, hold on a second. Let's play out the scenario. Let's play out the scenario if the U.S. president did nothing.
Right.
Then there would have been other
sanctions Sanctions on Afghanistan.
No. There would have been other attacks by other militant groups.
What happened? Yep.
No. There would have been there would have been, because we would have been seen as weak. We're just we were just using sanctions, which absolutely means zero to them. Absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
Oh, I think I've got
abstract.
it.
One of
No,
those
I got
people,
it. I got it. You're right. I would have went to Afghanistan.
One of those people
I would
they
have
tortured.
invaded. No, I've got an
One of
answer.
those people they
DJ,
tortured.
I've got an answer.
Let me
One of those people they tortured led to the courier that led to Osama bin Laden.
I never get a chance to
method
finish.
is 100%.
Wait. Let Aaron speak.
If torture was ineffective, we wouldn't do it for thousands of years. I'm not saying that the percentage is high, low. I don't know what the percentage is because I don't study torture.
They've done the studies on this. That's not how torture works.
Some of it yields factual information. Some of it does not.
One of the guys led to Osama bin Laden.
When you want information out of someone, you find ways to incentivize it because you do not want them to lie. Again, if there's information I want you to tell me, and you know I want to hear it, all I have to do is keep hurting you until you tell me what I want to hear.
How should they do it? How should they do it, abstract?
And again,
so how
what
should
I would have done right after we got Osama bin Laden, I would have left.
No, before Osama. We're not talking about that. How should they? Because we got Osama bin Laden because of one of the guys,
and then we stayed
down there who gave us the courier. Who we ended up getting Osama. So how should we get the information in?
There was probably other ways to get the information out of him without, torturing people or detaining them indefinitely. Which some of those same people are still in Guantanamo Bay.
So we should give them. So
let's do this.
Give them some.
I think no. Fuck your freedoms.
DJ,
all the freedoms you have. Let's hold people indefinitely, permanently. For years, because we can't figure out where to put them after we put them on the terrorist list.
Legally, those freedoms are for Americans in American cities. That's who our Constitution.
I don't feel comfortable co-signing rampant
DJ's
torture.
A fan of the big government.
I do agree that we, in terms of 9/11 Afghanistan, we had to do something. So the war in Afghanistan, from my point of view, was justified by in that sense. The Taliban
nation building
Afghanistan. Of course not. No. But what I'm saying is that, but I'm not. I could go as far as saying that I'm okay with sanctionizing torture of citizens or keeping them or abandoning the Geneva Convention, because I think what happens is that if we establish certain ground rules, once we break them, our enemy can do the same thing to us. So
they don't play by our rules.
Right, because they're not a country. Countries play by the Geneva Convention. Organizations.
To be really fair, we barely play by the Geneva Convention. No.
There's the expectations that
there's the expectation we should against the country
play by the Geneva Convention. Terrorist groups or groups that have a certain agenda, they're not a country. They're not accountable to the Geneva Convention.
I think the U.S. made themselves a lot more enemies by doing by a lot of torture, a lot of things he did with Guantanamo Bay. I think we could have.
What about cutting people's necks off? What about cutting people's necks off on TV?
No one's
on video.
So that means that
you have allies that are doing that right now, DJ. In Saudi Arabia,
that doesn't mean that you have to do the equivalent. Like, put it this way.
Shit.
That doesn't mean I could.
That's our allies doing that too.
DJ, it's not absolute. It doesn't mean if I'm saying that I'm not for torture, it's okay for them like with heads off. No, I'm not signing it. I'm not saying
I'm not an eye for an eye.
I'm just saying. All I'm saying is that here's my point. If I'm saying is that we really made things in a sense our mission a lot worse by some of the things we did in terms of finding some of these terrorists. Now, maybe we could have did this as a covert war. Maybe we could have had just sort of black ops and done this real on a way that was really, I don't know, really, really low key, sort of a Cold War, not Cold War, but sort of a non, a war that's above radar outside of Afghanistan. Maybe that was what you call it. I don't know. I just think that we made a lot of errors, and I think in terms of this war on terror.
Women and children.
Can I say this?
The women children. I'm not saying I don't what you call that, but that would have happened either way. that would have happened either way. You know, I mean, this is
you're
war.
Again,
You're looking
This
at
is
Greg,
war.
You're looking
War.
at this
when
as a
did
conventional
we
war.
get Osama bin Laden in
Abstract is looking at this as
2009?
a conventional war.
2011.
You're looking at this abstract as a conventional
And we
war.
stayed 9
They were
years
not
after
playing.
that.
They were not playing by conventional war, Geneva Convention rule. They were setting up. They were in hospitals. They were in mosques where they was forcing us, where we couldn't even shoot at them for fear of getting reprimanded by the whole world because we bombed a mosque where their headquarters was set.
I think the primary
in a hospital. We don't do that.
Let Mike go.
Let Mike go. Go, Mike.
I think the primary difference we're coming up against is that Aaron believes that the cost of life is more important than anything than any amount of security we might think we're getting. And the rest of you are honestly taking the ends justify the means argument, or varying amounts of or varying tacks to that. Like, here's the thing. There are no right answers.
I agree.
And we are going in circles, and really we're just yelling at each other. So I suggest that we table this and move on to something that is happening now.
We were on Ukraine, but we
were on Ukraine and we went all the way to Afghanistan and war on terror and yelling and all this stuff.
No, but the point is,
Mike always a fucking voice of
last point. Let's end this.
I said
Go ahead,
DJ something earlier about a week ago. This was asymmetric war. It was asymmetric war, and it's different than the type of wars where you can have the agreed set upon rules, and this is how we act. And just so that people remember, like, this country was basically, we won our freedom using asymmetric war. We didn't fight the same way in the lines with the British and this, that, and the other. That's how this country actually won their freedom, because we would have lost if we would have fought a symmetric
standing in
war
front of
with
each
the
other,
British.
shooting at each other. Yeah, this was not a conventional war for 20 years, and that's how come that's how come they defeated the Russians before us, and that's how come they fought us to a standstill. They don't care about their citizens. It's just, we gonna do whatever it takes. Unfortunately, we as Americans, we have, I guess, some type of we're held to another standard.
The argument you're making that they don't care about their citizens. I think
I disagree with that too.
I think they do care, but they are willing to be. They are religious zealots and are willing to sacrifice the health of their communities, or because they are themselves fighting a greater purpose. They are fighting on behalf of their interpretation of God. And in that instant, everything that you do is okay because you're ultimately fighting for the glory of God. There are lots of crusaders that did the same thing. There are lots of
talking about the Republican Party.
I'm talking about
Democrat
extremes to which specifically the followers of the three Abrahamic religions will go to act in what they believe to be the interests of our collective deity. And unfortunately, a lot of that has ended up being what ultimately just what we end up considering senseless killing. But we do it for the glory and honor of God and our country.
And so they care about, that means they care about their people then, even though they do. It's just because it's the sake of God. But because for religious reasons.
They think differently. We
can't
try to think like
they're approaching it differently. And I think DJ, unfortunately, I think the language in which you are using ultimately, as evil or not as they are, one, that's subjective, but the language you are using does, in my view, remove them of their humanity, so that it makes it easier for us to say we can do whatever the fuck we want to them. And this is where I do agree with Aaron. When you take that tack, you do lose something of yourself. And so you have to decide, is your personal well-being, and I do mean that in the spiritual, is that price worth what you're doing? Now, I'm not here to argue with you. These are all arguments that have to be made individually. I'm just saying.
Right. And let me say this as somebody who was sent over there twice. I'm sorry. As somebody who was sent over there twice, let me tell you, you saying people saying something like atrocities or something that we had rules of engagement. Do you know that we could not fire on anybody over there unless they shot at us first? Where that didn't apply to him, and it doesn't apply to Russia, it doesn't apply to China, it doesn't apply to nobody else, man. So we got rules, we got morals, we got values.
Which is why it becomes most important that we hold to our rules. It's why you work to not get dragged, and it's a harder fight because if you
a better person, DJ.
Well, no, we're not doing that because
it's not good. It's not good or better. It's not good, better.
I'm tired of hearing you all just like yell over each other about a thing that happened like literally 20 years ago. Now, granted, it still has effects of to today, and it's still progressing on into today. But like, we're not gonna get anywhere with this argument because we all have a fundamental difference of opinion about what is and isn't okay.
I want to say, even though whatever our ideals of humanity individually, the ideals that our culture gives us, our country gives us, we need to remember that other folks have different ideals, and humanity is bigger than what we perceive our ideals to be, because their ideal of humanity is different than our ideals of humanity because of the culture and the culture and how they were conditioned, how they were raised, and their history. It's different. It's not the same. We think it's cookie cutter. We think that that's a universality. It is not. It is not.
Sean, you was about to say?
I think he was saying.
Sean was saying, "I'm out here." Yeah, he peaced out.
We lost
about to peace out in a minute.
We lost our research guy. So anyhow, I think we've beat this enough to death, man. We've won on this whole.
I'm about to go to the gym.
Anything else? Midnight trip to the gym, like that. All right.
I want to get back in shape. You kidding me?
Right.
Oh yeah.
Right, man. Anything else? Any other issues? I think we've wrapped on enough about things. Let's wrap it up, and we can call it. We can start another day. Any other issues?
Great conversation,
great conversation. Appreciate the insight.
David, you make some good points. I know you're in and out sometimes.
Yeah, man. Dave, thanks. You bring some relevant points of view, man. Thanks.
Just want us to take
added point of view, man.
Enjoy the brothers. I do.
We will do this again, man. I want to kind of do this again. We'll have another conversation about some politics and bullshit. Thanks for McCall's show, politics and bullshit.
Hey,
I think we
should talk about. I think we should talk about relationships and all of that stuff, man.
Really, you really want to go there?
What kind of relationship?
You really want to go there?
Romantic relationships are just like
what it is. Whatever it is for
you.
Okay. All right. You know what?
Calm down, abstract. Calm down.
Let's do that. Because okay. I got a bunch to say on that. It's interesting points
of view. I'm gonna be quiet because I'm happily married.
Because I am too.
I know you got a lot to say.
I have a lot to say, right? I'm telling you. I think because you're married, it's foolish to think that because you're married, you should have nothing to say. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You have just as much to say as any person.
I say that I had nothing to say. I just say it might be foolish for me to say it. I'm happily.
Good point.
Y'all gonna have the volume down.
Well, that's not that's a great idea, man. We'll take this up. We'll figure out something, man. All right, fellas.
All right, man. Good night,
I'm
y'all.
out here, man. Appreciate you stopping by,
everybody.
Peace out.
Take care. Enjoy.
I start the job on Monday.
Hey, congratulations.
Congrats,
man.